And we're live.
Welcome to Talking in Stations, a podcast about EVE Online. I am Matterall here with Elise.
Hey, how's it going, everyone?
And Bale.
Hello.
We also have with us from crew our engineer McLeod.
What up, everybody?
And Caleb.
Hey, guys.
All right. As guests today, we have the, I guess we're just going to call him the star of yesterday's bombing run, FC Boat.
Hi.
Or the Big Red Boat is his full name. And with us from the other side, the Pappy Forces, is Fleet Commander Killaby. Say hi, Killaby,
Yes.
so people recognize your voice.
They don't already. Oh, he might be a little bit AFK suddenly.
Okay. Well,
He does this like every talk show he goes on. It like right as it starts.
he's probably stuck under some rubble somewhere. Okay. First thing we want to talk about is just to acknowledge that EVE Echoes has released into the world with 5 million pre-subs. So real quick around the board, what do you guys think of EVE Echoes, the reaction, the size of the launch? And then later we'll go on to more reactions at the end of the show.
I think it's pretty cool. Like there's one thing you have to get past, which is the Omega time in the game. Basically, if you don't buy Omega, you can't really do that much, right? Like an E-Relief. And the Omega, if you want the full Omega, you pay like $40.99 for it. So theoretically, Omega in a mobile game is more expensive than for Relief. But if you can look past that, I've had fun playing the game so far. Because it's basically like a fresh start for EVE, right? It's like an empty server. And so I've killed like probably 70 ventures in the last 2 days. I just camp and MTech-O, and all the people that try to mine, like go to 0-0 to mine the good ore, they just get killed. Like, it's pretty fun. Oh, yeah.
So you're ganking in Echoes. Okay.
Sounds like
Yeah,
you.
pretty much.
I heard they nerfed it out the gate. So goons from SA have like this massive corp that they did during like the beta, and they're trying to do it again, but they're limited to like specific corps on size. So all the different goons that were in one major group or planning on being in one major group have had to split off, and it's kind of they don't have alliances, I guess. So I heard a bunch of people were not happy about that because they had like all this planning done on what they were going to do, and then none of them can be in the same group.
Well, I haven't been playing it myself, but the girlfriend picked it up and has been staring at the table for almost 2 days straight now.
Well, the big news there is you have a girlfriend.
Yeah, I know, that's news to everyone. Most people most likely suspected that it was a boyfriend, but no, it's actually a girl.
Here
I thought
he
it was
is,
a cat.
the one guy with a girlfriend in EVE Online. I'm just kidding. Just a tease.
Yikes.
Okay.
I've had fun with Echoes. Like, it's too small on a mobile for me, so I've been using it on a tablet. I guess because I'm too advanced in boomeritis. But
Your eyes just
it's
aren't what
fun.
they used to be.
Yeah, exactly. It's fun. It's I don't think I'm gonna get as into it as Eve, but I could see how it's quite enjoyable, and hopefully there are people that come from Echoes to Eve. But as of right now, it does seem to be that there's a lot of people who at one time tried Eve, didn't like it because it was too hard, and this is, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's kind of it's Eve but Eve Light at the same time.
I like streamlined.
Yeah, there you go. It's more streamlined. It's more straightforward. The tutorial's way better. Like, the tutorial actually teaches you how to play the game.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's really strange. The whole narrative is very, very odd.
All right. Well, I really want to talk about this, but we're going to save that to the end of the show so we can get into the reactions. Real quick, though, Baleful, did you play it? Or have you looked at it?
Echoes now.
And McLeod?
I haven't, though I do have a phone now that can actually run it really well, like unlike previously. So I might actually get into it at some point, particular point.
Oh,
Yeah.
funny phenomenon. If your phone is a little bit too old but can still run it, it just eats your battery faster than you can charge it. So you're a little bit fucked.
Yikes. All right. Well, what we wanted to do is jump into, well, actually, there's one more thing I wanted to say about that. Talking Station is interested in transitioning players from EVE Echoes into EVE Online. That should be like one of the things that we do. So we may create a little division just for that, to explain the more complicated EVE Online to the less complicated players, or players of EVE Echoes, the less complicated game. And so what we want to do is highlight some of the cool stuff that can happen in EVE Online. And one thing that can happen in EVE Online that cannot happen in EVE Echoes is large fleet fights. And we just saw one of those, and wow, was it a doozy? At least, do you want to give us some backdrop on what the scenario was for this last battle in YTAC 2?
Okay, yeah. So the PanFam side have been kind of going through Fountain at a pretty quick rate, going through the more or less abandoned structures and everything. We go from really at the start of the war, where the initiative is holding D4K and you can't really get through, can't even take the jump bridge for like 4 or 5 days, to fast forward 2 weeks, there's not a single iHub left in the region, right? So it advanced really fast. And on the doorstep to Delve is a system of Y-2. And that's where the initiative kind of rebased, and that's how they got all their stuff into Delve. There's a keep star there, obviously. And so the PanFam side on that front pushed that keep star into an armor timer. And, it's hugely significant, right? Because if you can take that thing and you can then drop your own citadels there, you're staging one jump from Delve. Which makes, obviously Delve is a fortress or a quagmire, however you want to call it. But being one jump away is not what the Imperium wants. So they showed up to defend the timer, to like slow the progress as much as they could. And I guess Boat kind of did it single-handedly.
Hercules.
Achilles. It was basically the scene from Troy. He did the Achilles and Boagrius scene.
All right. First, let's set up the battle with what the pre-battle was, and then we'll talk about the execution of tactics. Killer B, what was going on the invading side?
Well, we hit it on Thursday. What day is today? What day is Sunday? So we hit it on Thursday night, I think. USTZ, yeah. Thursday night USTZ, we reinforced it. And it came out. We made sure everybody would form up big for it on our side. We saw Goon form ups pretty early, so we figured they would try to get major assets in before the timer, like way before the timer, so they have control over the grid. So we set up to drop them on the gate when they get in. That part worked okay. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like, with the Ravens, there was so much stuff going on our side. So the Ravens came in like way later than we wanted, and then they got bombed to death because we didn't have the Jackdaw fleets we wanted. I wrote up a ping, like an AAR, because I was running Horde yesterday because most of the Horde FC team was not present. So I wrote up an AAR after the fleet, and I summed it up in there quite nicely, I think. Like, at the end of the day, we have a team. Like, so usually, I know Goons have a core team as well for campaigns, or like an FC core team. And we have a core coordination team like that in our coalition at the moment in the war. And we made a bunch of mistakes leading up to that timer, a lot of them actually, and during the timer as well, which just cost us, at the end of the day, it cost us the timer. We did manage to drop the init battleship fleet and the Goon Megatrons as they were like gating into YTAC 2 from ZXB because of the regional gap. You can't bridge in. However, they managed to get in a bunch of dreads beforehand. I think it was like 50 dreads. And then also they, at the end, they had enough, like, they managed to get enough subcaps off the gate grid on the keep star to be able to defend that properly. And then there was some weird stuff going on. Like, for example, there was like a good chunk of our fighters that we used like from the carriers that never actually went over to the keep star. They just stayed on the gate even when there was nothing left there. It just felt a bit spaghetti on our end yesterday, which is, in my opinion, fine. It happens. We just have to, or we did, we had a debrief yesterday. We debriefed, and we are going to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes we made yesterday again, and then we should be fine. obviously Boat's bomb run was phenomenal on those Ravens, so they got completely wiped out. The Ravens at the time were our only tool to keep the Keepstar paused, so as soon as those Ravens were gone, the timer was ticking down. And it's especially annoying in tie-dye because when the timer of the structure ticks down at real time, whereas everybody plays at 1% speed because the server is slowed down so much by the tie-dye, right? So we can respond only really slowly to what happens on grid, whereas the timer just ticks in real time, and there's really nothing we could do about it. So basically, when the Ravens died, we tried to relocate the carrier fighters from the gate to the Keepstar, but they never made it in time, right? Like I think some of the fighters were like halfway over to the Keepstar when it repaired. So we just didn't have enough tools set up to keep the Keepstar paused. We put too much on those Ravens. We put too many eggs in one basket, as they say. And, at the end of the day, they just cost us the timer. That's just fine. Like I said it in the Horde ping as well, it was definitely a loss. Like some people, I got pretty mad yesterday. I was pretty mad at some point. Because some people were like, oh, if we trade these facts, we can at least make the ISK BR, even though it was like, bro, who gives a shit? Like, everybody knew that we were coming here to put the Keepstar into final. Like, the battle report ended up being even pretty much, right? And that's like 190 battleships died, and that was all Ravens. I don't know how. Yeah. Like
when you said
that's the whole difference.
When you said I wrote up a ping, I was like, did he say I wrote up a poem? Because that's kind of that's what the moment calls for. This is not just a battle for ISK. Elise and I were talking about that, right?
Yeah, it was really like a big momentum shift, at least like from the perspective that I was in. So I was in both fleets. I wasn't FCing. I wasn't doing anything important. I was just a guy pushing F1. But I was in both fleets pushing F1, so I could kind of hear the reactions, right, as the people were going. Like, people were pretty positive on the Pappy side at the very beginning of the fight. Like, there was a little bit of a mistake where, like, we tried to form to keep people from jumping in. As Killabee mentioned, you can't use a jump drive to get through that gap. It's too big from ZXB to Y-2. You have to take that gate. So controlling the gate was like this big objective. So we parked a bunch of caps on there, threw the fighters there. The Megathron fleets used MJDs to get out, but other than that, like the Feroxes couldn't get through. The Abaddons really couldn't get through. It was kind of a good thing. So we're like, okay, well, this is going good. And then you just kind of see out of the like this big flash coming from the side of your screen, and you're like, what the hell was that? And you kind of look over it, and you've got time to look because there's nothing going on. As Killabee mentioned, you're going at 10% speed. Like, who cares? And then you just see all these Ravens just turn into wrecks. And you're like, oh, shit. Like
that Death Star is fully operational.
Yeah, you're like, at that moment, there's nothing that you can do because it's tie-dye, right? You're like, you can't move the fighters there. You can't get another fleet to reposition there because then you're leaving your caps undefended. You just know, like, it's done. From that moment, it is absolutely done. You just have to salvage the situation. And on the Imperium side, like, the people, I'm not going to say that they were demoralized at all, but they were just like trudging along, doing whatever. And then Boat's bomb run came through, and then the initiative follow-up came through to kill all the Ravens. And you could feel like in that fleet, everyone's like, we won, we did it. These guys have to do this 180 more times, so we're going to get our pound of flesh. Ha, 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 ha. And it was just like this monumental like shift in momentum.
So, Boat.
Hi.
There was that, sorry I interrupted you, but there was this thing about that Death Star being operational, that flash that surprised everyone on the Pappy side. That was you. What happened?
All right, so I'm going to break down some things because a lot of people were confused on how that's like happened and stuff. So if you watch, there's a video, a YouTube link, I guess, of a guy on the what's that side? The Pappy's, not Pappy. The what are you guys? Pandemic Horde, that side. He was one of like the guys I've seen like a subcat fleet or something. He was Twitch streaming, and he was like, "Yeah, because Tess was an hour late, we lost this fight." Well, when you think about that, it's kind of hilarious because you had all these fleets getting ready to pile through a gate, right? They're like about to like rush through the gate into Y2 from ZXB. But there were already like 2,500 people in local before our 1,500 decided to trudge in. So I knew it was going to be like near impossible to get through that gate with bombers. They had bubbles up. They had fighters already on the gate. Like, bombers would have never got cloaked. So we went around. We took a jump bridge down to one smeb and then gated 40 jumps and went all the way around Fountain. Oh. We passed Test and Hopib in their rocks. We went through KVN. There was a friendly gate camp there that said hi to us. And then we gated into Y2. And we managed to load Y2 in our bombers, like, from LBGI before our fleet started to decloak to burn away from the gate. So we traveled 40 jumps in the time it took them to go one gate. It's so broken what tie-dye can do. And also, I just don't understand this, and I'll never understand this about our enemies. They still have yet to figure out that the more people you bring to these fights, yeah, that's the route we took. You can see that on screen. The more people you bring to fights, something like that, yeah, is that it causes tie-dye to go pretty extreme. But structures still count down because of the game mechanic can't be changed because of damage caps. The structure still counts down in real time, and the damage cap goes up exponentially. So you can't just pause it with like 10 ships during heavy tie-dye. It takes like 1,000 ships if you do the math. Or if it's 10 ships, then it's 1,000. Well, knowing that, like, if you don't keep it paused the whole time, the Keepstar is just going to repair. Well, you knew, like, with them bringing Ravens, their whole plan was to try to look like Initiative and use Ravens to keep it paused. Initiative, if you remember, they came up with the idea to use against the Keepstar in wormhole space. The difference being, though, is the game mechanics have changed. The reason Initiatives in wormhole space work so well is one MGD ship could jump the whole fleet. So they could just bounce around on grid. The bombs would never catch up to the Ravens from the Keepstar, and the Keepstar couldn't kill them. So the Ravens were immortal. Well, with this new change, MGD ships don't matter, so Test had to use their own MGDs. But they didn't click them in time, and that's why they died.
They couldn't leap out and escape.
The crazy thing is, the whole MGD Raven fleet was never actually designed as an anti Keepstar or anti Citadel kind of platform. Like, that was just something that, we ended up finding that, like, it was actually quite capable to do. Initially, the whole idea of the Raven fleet was to actually, take on capitals, but capitals that weren't actually supported by subcap fleets, because it's essentially, when it initially came out, when we initially started trying it in the Initiative, we were basically fighting NC Dot, and NC Dot were just dropping capsules everywhere, to take out stuff that we had in Syndicate. And so, we were looking at a way of potentially engaging capitals, and in potentially engaging also potentially super capitals as well, but not having something that will just flat out get completely wrecked by carriers and dreads and stuff. And so
the doctrine,
that's how it happened.
It died with the MGD changes, because you have to use your own personal MGDs. Personal MGDs take twice as long to spool up. And if you don't hit them the second bombs launch, they don't spool up in time because they take 12 seconds, and bombs take 12 seconds to explode. So yeah, there's that. So another reason that it was like a mistake on their part is they were so focused on getting kill mills and like the battle for the gates that they forgot it's heavy tie-dye. And with heavy tie-dye, you're not going to kill things fast enough to really like take out 1,500 duders. So all of our fleets just burn away from the bad dudes and then warped off. Some key changes that CCP's made recently made it really hard to like hold enemy fleets down. Mutant fleets are very slippery because they're really fast. So hack fleets work really well. Distracting the enemy with apostles on a gate. Capital kill mills. It was I think Initiative did that. Where they dropped some apostles, like they jumped like 4 or 5 apostles through the gate.
Yeah.
Because apostles are mega cheap. Like, they don't matter.
Like they're a better return for the money than just basically
Yeah.
throwing a whole bunch of Guardians in, like, because Guardians just get
Yeah.
blapped.
And then another thing too is that all the fleets that we were flying yesterday could fit MGDs, and because like they had two choices, right? They could have their jackdaws in a position to defend them against bombs, or they could have their jackdaws in the middle of those bubbles with carrier fighters ready to scram things. So they had to make the choice. So one jackdaw fleet was in the middle of the bubbles and just got shredded. The other jackdaw fleets were other places or something like that. But the jackdaws in the bubbles got shredded, so they couldn't tackle anything. And then all the fleets just MJD'd away from the bad guys, so they couldn't get pointed. And carrier fighters, like sirens, are really limited now to like one per ship. And if you look at the fight, only like the first 100 carriers actually got their fighters ever to the gate. So that's only 100 sets of fighters or sirens. So you just start shooting those, and that's maybe 100 people tackled temporarily. So you just warp off, and so like you lose a bunch on the gate, but like a vast majority of it makes it to the keep start. Then they tried to use Feroxes to pause the timer right on the keep start grid, trying to get us to aggress. But apparently Bomber's Bar showed up, didn't tell anybody, and decided to bomb Horde of all people. And what's interesting about that is the guy that was FC'ing for the bombing run for Bomber's Bar is actually blue to NC Dot, so it's kind of weird. I don't understand, because I was really confused when I saw that bombing run as to like why in the world would they bomb blues. I mean, it was kind of weird. And then because we've been dealing with him and Dell for years, so the next phase was then like the Ravens came. So the Ravens signed in, and like the whole plan was to bomb the Ravens to begin with. That's like what I wanted to bomb. But they were smart. They had a fleet waiting for where they were going to warp, and they warped to like a centralized place. And when they landed, bubbles had already went up. And the way bombing runs work is you try to catch the enemy as like they come out of warp, and you probe them out, and you get a good probing result, and then you warp to them at range, and all your bombs explode on top of the enemy. The problem is if they put bubbles up, you get caught in bubbles, like dragged into bubbles. And when you get dragged into bubbles, bombers don't work because you're too close. You blow each other up, and it's something that Tess did yesterday. It was pretty funny. They blew themselves up a lot with their own bombs, because a lot of their bombers would get drag bubbled, and then when you bomb, the ones that didn't get drag bubbled would be at a good range and would eviscerate all the other bombers. It happened to Tess like 3 times. It was great. But anyway, so the Ravens landed. But what happened was, I guess the guy that gave the warp in for the Raven fleet was a Rapier. So, you know, when you fly a Rapier, you don't want to be uncloaked because they're not very tanky. So that Rapier burned out of the bubbles like as fast as he could. And if you look at the video of the Ravens landing, you'll see this like NC Rapier burn like down and away as fast as he can. Well, as soon as he left the bubbles, I just probed again, got him as a result, bookmarked his spot, and then warped my fleet to 30. And it just so happened that the angle we warped at put us right where we would have been if I had a good probing result on the Ravens. And so I just told him to approach a Raven and bomb, and then that's what we did. And because of tie-dye, well, it gets even better.
What you're saying, Boat, is that an NC guy set you up for this positioning.
Yeah, so right here on this video, so you're seeing the bottom.
I'm trying to find it at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's right there. So you see how the bubbles are going up on. You just passed it.
No, sorry, dude.
No, it's fine. What you do is you'll see the bubbles go up. You can go a little forward, and you'll see all these bubbles around the Ravens, and the Rapier just burns down and away, and you just see it. See it right there. You should see it right there. Okay, focus on the Ravens over there. You can't.
I can't.
It's guys on this time. You're seeing
video, man.
You're seeing things like 10
you
seconds.
See this Raven in like the corner there. You see it, and it burns out the bubbles. You're like, oh fuck, that's great. And I got like 3 bookmarks right at that spot because I was trying to save it. But you can see it burning right under the word fountain. There's a Raven burning. There's like one ship. But anyway, so
wait. The point is, so I want to make this appealing to more than people that just know how fleet commanders work.
Okay,
you saw an opportunity that was created by something of a, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but an adjustment that an NC pilot made.
Well, yeah,
you saw
you
that
have to-
opportunity.
Well, bombers are a science, and a lot of people don't understand this. And even a guy on my fleet yesterday didn't understand this. He was complaining a lot. Is that you can't just take bombers, put them in a position, and throw the bombs and win, right? It's very delicate in the sense that you have to time everything perfectly, because one little oops in your bombing run will lead to it not killing anything. And what ends up happening is, like, Mr. V, who was the founder of the Goon Bomber Wolf group and Goon Bombing, and he kind of invented this concept, is he was very meticulous and calculated. He never, like, put his bombers in a situation where they couldn't get away safely and nobody would die, right? But then he would miss, like, opportunities to bomb things because he wouldn't take risks. And then Kid Color came along, and Kid Color was a little more of a precision bomber. He was faster. He got, more accurate bombing runs. And then I came along and, like, said, okay, well, why don't we just warp into bubbles? Why have we never done that before? And so I tried that once, and that was in 6VDT, and it blew up, like, all these NC, I think they were Dominic's, just obliterated a whole Dominic's fleet. And then it killed, like, a test fleet then. This is, like, 6-7 years ago. And so that worked, and, like, nobody thought that would work. So that now bombers are, like, feared. You kill bombers. You have fleets. In this case, they have a whole Ferox Jackdaw mixed fleet dedicated to stopping the bombers. But you'll notice in this part of the video right here, their Jackdaws didn't fire to defend the missiles. Normally, when you see bombs launch in mass, you launch your defender missiles. They didn't. And the reason I know they didn't is that my first 8 or so bombs that launched, all of them hit. Like, all the dudes said, yeah, I got hits. I hit things. I blew up things. And a couple enemy rapier or sabers blow up. And those blow up usually on the first couple of bombs. And so if those didn't blow up, then defender missiles worked, right? But they never launched defender missiles. It wasn't until, like, the third wave-ish, when the enemy fleet was already getting into armor, that you started to see defender missiles, which is really weird. You'd think you would see those a lot earlier. But one of the issues with Y-2, we've been having this for a couple weeks now, and it's kind of weird, is that bombing runs aren't completely annihilating fleets like they should. Everything's a calculation. So because game developers are bad, they base EVE off of signature radius. For some reason, they haven't fixed that in 10 years, and I don't know why, but they need to. And so signature radius of bombs is 400, and you have to divide that by whatever the signature radius of the fleet you're bombing. Well, Ravens don't care. They have like 800 sig because they're shield tanked. So you hit them for full damage. So you can kill Ravens with, like, I think it's like 11 bombs, and we threw 40. So even with defender missiles, I didn't think they were going to survive, but somehow they did. And that's when initiatives came in. And you'll notice, like, in the bombing run, all the bubbles disappear for like a fraction of a second. That's when initiative warped. And they were in shrapnel bombs, and I was an electron. And if they had fired at the same time I did, they would have canceled each other out. So they waited till, like, this moment when all the bubbles went away. They warped in. And I think there was one bubble still up because one of the initiative squads gets caught in a bubble. But basically, all my guys are gone. And then you see initiative come in, and then they decloak right here and bomb. And at that point, the Keepstar had locked up a bunch of Ravens, and they were all in armor. Like, they were just waiting to die. But for some reason, there was no communication between Test and whoever was doing this, like, Ferox Jackdaw thing. And the Ferox Jackdaw fleet kept bubbling and kept trying to kill bombers, chasing kill mails, which kept Test's locks in their spots. They were all lined out, ready to work, but they were all bubbled, and they couldn't go anywhere. And they just died.
I think we did see a Saber trying to catch bombers.
Yep.
Killer B, was that you?
Right here, actually.
Was that you in the what is it? Jackdaw fleet?
No.
Ferox fleet?
Yeah, I wasn't. I was doing one of the Horde Ferox fleets.
He was the one still on the gate. Yeah, well,
what
this
was your
wasn't his.
guys'?
No, I was on the Keepstar when the Ravens got bombed. I walked my Ferox fleet up to the Keepstar to pause it because the fuck me, the test Ravens didn't get there in time, right? So the test Ravens arrived like, I don't know, an hour late or something. And we tried, initially we wanted them to pause the keepstar initially, obviously, but they weren't ready in time. So we had to send somebody up to just pause it. So as you mentioned, you basically have to keep it paused and tie-dye the entire time where it's going to wrap. So I went up there with my Ferox fleet because I'm pretty confident in my ability to defend my Ferox fleets from bombers. So I decided to go up there with my fleet and pause the keepstar initially. I did get bombed by Init or by Bomber's Bar, as you said. I am actually not sure which one it was, but I got bombed by someone.
Yeah.
So I got bombed by someone, but we pulled off the defenders very well. My Jackdaw pilots did a good job. I fortunately had a lot of time to coordinate the anti-bomber squad, so we didn't take a lot of damage from that bomb run, and then I was able to warp off because the Ravens took over pausing the keepstar for a brief moment until they died.
I thought it was stain bombers that attacked you.
No.
No,
So
Stain wasn't there actually.
Like, that's one of the things I want to point out. There were, like I mentioned earlier, there was a bunch of mistakes we made on our side, but one that was really noticeable, and one of the things that I think will be a big struggle for us in this war, for Pappy, is going to be the coordination in general, because the Imperium has they have years of experience at coordinating, because it's one big alliance, right? And then in it, right? So they have like very well set up infrastructure, and they know how to talk to each other and how to coordinate with each other. But one of the issues we're facing with the Pappy coalition is that it's a mix of people, so many alliances, so many different people, and it's really hard trying to get all of those people to do what you want them to do. So, for example, yesterday there was one bomber fleet and system from Siberian Squad, which are obviously a member of Fire Coalition. And allied with Legacy and Test, and they were just randomly bombing on their own as well. And the Siberian Squad bomber fleet actually screwed up a couple of the Test bomb runs, because the way bombs work is if you launch a different bomb type, so let's say Test bombs with EM bombs, and then Siberian Squad bombs with explosive bombs, the bombs, they kill each other. And we had that one Siberian Squad bomber fleet just randomly bombing at the same time as Test was bombing, and then the Test bombs died and they didn't achieve what we wanted them to. And then you have random alliances showing up that are blue to us with like a Jackdaw fleet, but none of them are in comms, and they just warp around and do shit on their own instead of being useful. It's one of those things that I think is going to require a lot of work on our end, especially once we start getting into the next part of the war where we're all going to be staging very close to each other. Right now, PenFam, we've mostly dealt with PenFam, and we have a lot of experience talking to each other as well. Like, working NC and PL, for example, if we work together, it works really smoothly because we've been working together for years. But once we get into the side of the war where we're going to be staging very close to Test and everybody, I think it'll be a big challenge for us to figure it out, because it's just something we haven't done in a long, long time. Basically, since World War B, we haven't worked with Test. We haven't worked with some of these people we've never worked before ever, like Siberian Squad and Co. So it's.
So were you the FC of this operation?
No, I wasn't. We had a meeting the night before where we decided who was going to take over the operation and lead it. And I didn't feel well that night, so I didn't do it. Like, ironically, I just didn't feel like taking over the charge of that timer, and because I didn't know if I was able to attend the fleet at full length and everything the next day. So I'm a bit under the weather, as they say. So I didn't take it, and then somebody else took it, and I just didn't work out in the end. It's unfortunate. We'll get over it.
Another interesting thing too is like what he said about the coordination thing is that you could tell, like, when you watch some of these streams and videos of people from the fight, and you watch Reddit posts, and there's a lot of like finger pointing. But I did link a killboard character in Fleet. The reason that Tess was so late with their Ravens is they let ProGod be in charge of them. And ProGod got killed in HiSec twice on like a travel yacht and was over 2 hours late to where he wanted to be. And they had all the Ravens in like low sec ready to go to hand out, but they didn't have their FC there. So ProGod was like trying desperately to get a character there so they could actually go. Because if you don't know, it's really hard to FC a fleet if you're not like there with the fleet. And so ProGod himself could actually get to the Raven fleet to then bridge in. So they had to bridge in so late. That's why I passed them when I was traveling through LoSec. And I was really surprised. And I didn't find this out till like someone's like, oh yeah, by the way, we killed ProGod in high sec, so he's gonna be a little late, and we potted him. And so that was the reason that they were really late.
Well, there's a quote. It's hard to FC a fleet if you're not there. Right, at least.
No, actually, no. I mean, it is today. In the past, I've done it.
Be surprised.
Back in the day, but we won't go there. We won't go there.
I know that Shine specifically has FC 2 fleets in 2 different regions at the same time before.
Yeah, no, I've FC'd a fleet from like 10 gates away. But anyway,
it wasn't Killer B. It wasn't Killer B that was in charge of the Ravens. It was ProGod Legend. Does that mean the ProGod
was
Legend
running the Ravens?
Was he running the entire operation? Where was the communication breakdown? Is there a failure point?
I wish I would have taken a screenshot, but I could probably send you like there's probably a good picture to answer that, because there was a lot of people on that Discord that we used for coordinating, and it turned out just to be a pain in the ass. So we're going to rework that as well a bit. We're probably going to break down the structure on our coordination Discord a bit more, make sure that we have less people on coordinating comms for big timers like these, and they can just relay that to their own individual FCs from where we talk, right? That was one of the points.
I mean, it's hard.
So too many people talking. Okay.
Well, yeah,
I'm familiar with that.
TLDR.
But here's the thing, though. Wouldn't it? I mean, it's kind of hard not to. Have to feel left out. Yeah, so some guy on the internet that like posts Reddit things was like, he was trying to show like the math and like how many dudes we have, and it's like something like 49,000 pilots now in the Imperium. And then he's like, just so I don't appear biased, here's what we have. And it was 105 alliances, 150,000 pilots in those alliances. So, and I mean, don't get me wrong, some of them are like 30-man fleet type alliances. Like you were talking about how like people just randomly show up and do what they want. The other day, like during the shield timer, there was an Osprey like Navy fleet that showed up, and we thought they were trying to like shoot us, but they were neutral to us, and like they used to be Origin. So they just like show up and they start shooting fighters, and we're like, what the hell? And so Asher PMs them. He's like, the FC's like, yeah, fighters are more expensive than you guys, so we're gonna shoot fighters. Just don't shoot us, please. And it's like, wait, what?
Yeah, those are former Black Legion guys.
Yeah, and Elo literally said on comms, and I quote Elo, shoot them motherfuckers, because they don't want anything to do with me anymore, and I don't know why they're here. Elo was trying to kill them for like an hour before the FC was like, yeah, we're just gonna kill fighters if you leave us alone.
So when you're trying to organize like a big fleet, like a large group of people, as Kill B said, there are some pain points there. You literally need an FC to not FC a fleet and just FC the people who are FCing the fleet, right? So someone to relay like, hey, you have to do this. We need a Sino over here. You need like literally a top level coordinator, which has to be like a very good FC. So you have to take a piece off of your board from the fleet and FC like all the people together.
What?
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason.
Like, we just kind of throw people at the board, right? We had like 70 people just sitting there talking, chatting. I think when I did my bombing run, Elo had to tell me to shut up because I was celebrating on Challenge Command too much.
I mean, that's just you, but that's just your style.
Elo's not used to me yet, so he's that. But this is the same as the past, right? Like the past 3 or 4 times that we fought NC, which is why it's like we're not focused on NC in this, is that you end up in a situation where the adults in the room have to step up and run things. ProGod and Alpha Star Pilot aren't the 2 like most dedicated fleet commanders in EVE history, and usually it takes about 4 to 6 weeks before they like disappear and get bored. This happened when like ProGod said he was going to take us out of Delve the first time, like 3 years ago when we moved there, and like ASP has a track record of that. And so you end up having the adults in the room, NC, PL, who step in and have to kind of make the decisions for everyone. Because let's face it, when you have 98 alliances that have been pets for the last 10 years that now have autonomy because PL's kind of shrunk in size and can't really like dictate what goes on, they think they're important and have a role. And I saw that yesterday in one of the Twitch streams. Like this guy was literally talking like ProGod was some backtier, like backseat FC who had never done anything before, and this guy was in Horde, and I was just like, wow, that's like the way he was talking about Test and Pro God made it sound like it was Seamus or Zaz himself, like shaming this person, and I'm just like, it was a guy I'd never heard of.
All right, psychological warfare aside,
it was just
So I have to ask but one question. So
Yeah.
Last week you said keep stars suck, and that
They suck so bad
that you'd rather defend them or you'd rather have Fortizars instead of keep stars. You still hold on to that.
Yes. So,
All right,
for example,
just making sure you're
let me
staying on the
explain.
record.
So let me explain. Yesterday, the Ravens that I blew up with initiative, and the high five to a knit there. They weren't the scary blob as much because we could get in a fight and like shoot them, and we warped our fleets in like that. That wasn't the worry. It was the group of like 20 Ravens. There was 2 groups of 20 Ravens from Horde that had MJD ships that could bounce around infinitely, and the Keepstar couldn't hit them. The only thing that could hit them was the DD, but if they were smart and warped off, the DD wouldn't have hit them. But they never warped off. It was kind of weird. So they lost a bunch of Ravens to the DD. But yeah, that's the only thing that works like in the tie-dye like that is the Doomsday. And you only get to fire it 5 times before it goes reinforced. In like max crazy tie-dye, you get 5 shots. So it kind of like it's like a Titan in like the gigantic mega fights. Whereas a Titan, it's all that matters is its DD. The guns don't do anything. It's not going to tank anything. So that's the same thing with the Keepstar, and that's Fortizars are cheaper. You could do, I think someone said to me yesterday, you can do 10, 20 Fortizars for every Keepstar. So if you've got 60 Keepstars down or 70 Keepstars down, you could have had, what is it, 240 Fortizars? I mean, that's a lot of defense in right there.
So the question came up.
Sorry, go for it.
The question came up: how many Ravens actually died in that bombing?
194.
187, according to
some close to 200, basically.
So my man in Test, and I'm not going to name who he is, they had 198 Ravens and only 4 survived.
Some people just don't have Z killboard stuff in there.
Yeah. So some of them
must be that there are some innate bombers that don't have Z kill in.
But yeah, so
did all the Ravens in that battle die in one place, or were there a couple?
No, there were other Ravens that died.
Yeah,
there was a secondary Raven fleet, which was Cap F, which is a Corbin Horde. They were running a separate Raven fleet as well, but they also got DD'd by the Keepstar, I think. And then
they did.
The majority of the Ravens that died were obviously the tappy ones that died in the bomb run.
See, this is a question I have for Killer B though, right? So
hit me.
That side of fight, or that fight aside, there was this one time about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago now, where like I was talking to you on a talk show, and you had talked about how you didn't really want to have to coordinate and like run things. You want to just have fun and enjoy the game. Does that still stand? Are you like back to coordinating and running the show?
I don't want to, which is part of the reason I didn't take over yesterday. And I'm hoping that, I know we will, but it's just a matter of getting the shit back together. Yesterday everybody was a bit dusted up and everybody was a bit rustled. I need to be debriefed like 3 hours after the timer was over, and everybody was way calmer again. And I said that as well to Vince and to Nidis Bar, as well as like, please don't make me do what I did.
You know they're gonna make you.
And we'll see. Like I'll try to avoid it as long as I can, and then I'll make a decision. But yeah, we'll see.
You still haven't answered this question though, and I know Matterall asked it, but now I'm asking: who was in charge yesterday? Because I thought it was one person, but that person obviously wasn't in charge. So who was the like top guy yesterday? Who called the shot? Was it Pro God?
Yeah, he wanted to. Now, see, here's the thing, right? Like that was one of the funny parts as well of that whole thing. It was like, so we had a meeting the night before where we decided how we're going to play it, what we're going to do. We had a bunch of strategies set up, and we asked Vince basically said like, hey, look, we need somebody to call the shots tomorrow. Who's going to do it? Pro said like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then he arrived like a bit late, so it was a bit sad.
It's just a bit. Yeah. And then the best part too is apparently he, according to my Horde friend, he told you guys that he was doing something on a boat, and that's why he was late.
I have no idea about that. Like honestly,
so he told his fleet like it was okay. So you're gonna love this. So he tells his fleet that like, he was out on a boat, and that's why he wasn't on comms and was late. The thing is he had dropped comms when he got killed the first time because he knew he was going to be late. So then he joined comms again after he finally got there, like an hour later. And then when they landed on grid in their little ball of ravens, apparently he said, and I quote, "Enjoy the next 6 hours of your life because this is what you'll be doing."
I mean, to be fair, that's not a wrong statement, but at the end of the day, it was, like I said at the start, it was not very well coordinated, and it's something that is bound to happen. I'm actually very happy that we had a little how do you say this?
I don't understand this. So tell
Hiccup?
me this, okay? But tell me this.
I'm just happy we had the hiccup then now on a timer like this and not something like, Titans and Supers involved. So I'm hoping that we're going to sort the issues out until the next time. And then we can...
This is the concern, right? And this seemed to be the concern of a lot of your allies yesterday, is that you have all these wonderful leadership type people. You have NC with Vince, and you have, PL, and you have brave newbies. You have this guy Iron Wolf, who's a really old school like fleet commander type, and then like
ran for CSM.
Iron Wolf's a cool dude. He makes legacy work, and then you have like the redheaded stepchild that is Test and like Billy
That
and
would be
Progod.
Travis Muskrat.
But you have those like two dudes in the corner who, for some reason, started the war. So that I guess that gives them power, and they just haven't figured out that I guess no one's figured out that Progod just doesn't do well in running wars. Great FC,
You're talking about
great FC, but
Progod and Villy are the two guys in the corner that you're talking about. But let's put aside this the psychological splitting of allies for a second.
No, it's not that.
Progod, I just have to say, I flew with Progod a long time. He's a fantastic FC.
Yes,
as an FC.
He's a fantastic
he doesn't
FC.
really There's this. Look, I've done this for a long time, and I'll tell you from dealing with personalities and goons, our best court person doesn't FC subcaps and never has. Right? He's not someone who can pick up a battleship fleet and call the shots. But he's someone who can, as Killaby said, tell everyone that's at FC to shut up and listen and do it this way. So the best cord guys are not good FCs, and it's actually the opposite. The guys that are the really, really, really good FCs that become cord people, they suck at it, and they want to FC at the same time, and it leads to a mess. You can't. Mm-hmm. It just doesn't work. So,
it doesn't work.
I will say this: Odesh P is getting hit right now. I don't know if you guys know this, but that's another Keepstar of ours. And yesterday, you might have heard this. Matani was talking about some plans that we had for Y-2 that didn't materialize. Those are going to happen in OP. Operation Dreadball is coming, and it's going to be hilarious.
Okay, well, that's a good point that you're pulling at there, and that is. FCs that are particularly good at some things may not translate to something else. So the block level FC might be different than a skirmish FC.
Yeah, I will say there is obviously there's an exception to every rule, right? So Shadu was one of those people that could go into a coordination channel, and although he's probably one of the best FCs the game has ever seen, he's also incredibly talented at managing other FCs and being the Sky Marshal figure, right? So there are a lot of other people that I've experienced that do the same thing.
Yeah, because the Sky Marshal that I remember, fondly is, and Boat will know who I'm talking about here, is Blarf McTaggart, right?
I was talking about Cake Color.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, Cake Color does well as well. He's the best. Yeah, but K Color can run fleets as well, but the thing is, you as you'd never really hear Blarf McTaggart be talked about in terms of FC circles, but he ran the CFC's Sky Marshal team for quite some time as the high level Sky Marshal, and he was absolutely superb at it, but he wasn't an FC. So it's one of those things like Boat says, sometimes the best FCs aren't really that good, Sky Marshals, and the same the other way around. So,
well, these same kind of groups of people had a similar problem in the First World War B, right? So you're talking about, you had dozens of personalities And people doing things their own way. They weren't used to working together. A lot of times they didn't want to work together. But towards the middle part of that campaign, things start to really mesh. Like they found a system that works. It's not a matter of, oh, these guys will never work together, there's too many personalities. It's a matter of finding a system that works and improving on it. And I think Killer Bee touched on this, right? It's not going to never work. They would rather have it work without a hiccup or without a mess up like yesterday, right? But this is a learning process. It's a learning tool, right? So next time, hopefully it'll work a little bit better. There'll be fewer kinks to work out.
This is my opinion, and it's related to how this war's going. And I touched on this last week. I don't understand the mentality of working with test. And to explain why is like tests are living in Esoteric right now. They're living at home. They're staging out of their home. They're doing all their ops from home. Their guys still ratting mine at home. But while that's going on, Horde is losing shit. And what I mean by losing shit, I'm going to link it here. I linked it to INN writer yesterday. Darkside has been in Geminate, just wiping Geminate out. They've already taken half the region. They took BWF's iHub, and they've been killing BWF structures. They killed the BWF fort. They've been killing super carriers in all over the place. But another thing that like people get mad at me about because they say I jinxed those Init Titans dying is that when you look at Z-Kill's supers, goons haven't lost, like the Imperium as a whole, other than those two Titans, haven't lost a super carrier or a Titan since May 25th. But in that time frame, the PanFam group and Test and Legacy have lost over 50, something like that.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, it's the advantage of attacker versus defender, right? You guys aren't out using your supers. You've told people not to use ratting supers. When the tables were turned, when you guys were glassing the North, you were losing 2 hells a day, literally 2 a day for the entire campaign.
But that's the thing, though, right?
Because you guys weren't there defending the home front. You were deployed half a region away, or half the universe away.
That's confusing about it is like they're losing stuff, but for test. That's what you get out of this. Like you're seeing test at home. They're at home. They're living from home. They're doing things from home. Apparently, it was 3 Fortizards. I've been corrected. So they lost 2. They lost 1 in BWF, 1 in B&D, and then 1 in LoSec. So I don't know. It's weird because that's the thing. Is like
we get your point. Horde essentially losing stuff on behalf of Test. I know where you're going with this, but I want to turn you back here for a second.
Okay.
And I want to hit the major themes here, which are very important, and that is the momentum shift. It kind of feels, at least we were talking about this earlier. Can you just re-explain what happened in this battle and why it was important?
Yeah. So
okay.
Wait, which one?
Elise and then Boat. Elise and then Boat.
Go ahead.
So in the beginning of Fountain, right? We talked about at the beginning of the show. You have the initiative saying, we're the 300. You're not even going to crack Fountain's walls, and you have PanFam. You're just throwing bodies at D4K. Can't even get the jump bridge down. 4 days, 5 days, almost a week. Can't even get a jump bridge past reinforcement. You have Brisk going on the meta show saying, there's 1 iHub down. 5 days later, all of Fountain has no Imperium iHubs left. Like the speed at which that was going, and that happened after a huge fight in LTAC A, where the PanFam side just completely routed the Imperium. Initiative lost 50 carriers. 3 fleets died, 3 full Munin fleets died. That was a big momentum shift, and that propelled the PanFam side to take all of Fountain in really ridiculously fast timings. There hasn't really been a big, really battles after that, and that's because the Imperium recognized, hey, these guys have a ball of momentum. The worst thing we can do is get crushed by this ball that is running down the mountain. Let us have it peter out a little bit, and that's what they did. They stalled it. They moved the initiative moved out. There's a few fights in CTAC-N, but nothing huge, right? And so now you have a similar situation in Y-2. The Imperium looks at this, analyzes it, says, hey, maybe we can get now is a really good time to strike back. And if they rubbed a genie lamp and they said, "This is what would you want to happen in this fight?" They couldn't have even have said what would happen. Like that's how amazing this outcome was for the Imperium.
Yeah.
You save the timer. You embarrass Tess. You just completely embarrass Tess in the whole process. And that's the Imperium's narrative right now. It's, as Boat was really doing a great job of it, it's, they're pushing at things to see what comes loose. Now the thing is, you guys are fighting for Test and you're losing all of this. The ability to just completely demolish Test, embarrass them, kill all of their fleet, and save a timer, that's just like a palpable moment, a turning point for the Imperium, who, quite frankly, at least on this front, in the Fountain front, we're having a really tough time.
Well,
so now the momentum is completely shift the other way around. Now the ball's in the PanFam's court to see how they're going to respond. Are they going to step up to this, or are they going to get frustrated? Are they going to take the bait and say, "Oh, these damn tests, they can't do anything right"? And are they going to peter out there? Like, the goal of the Imperium is to have Fountain just slow down the PanFam side and make people bored and want to leave.
So
and that really didn't happen until now.
Yeah, like it won't peter out though. That's the thing. So like, yeah, if you were there yesterday, they had 3,500 dudes, right? And then the first Keepstar they killed in J5A, they had 3,200 on the kill mill. So the number wise, it's not going to slow down. I mean, even today they have 100 carriers shooting the OP, I think. But where it's a big deal is like I said last week about Fraternity. Fraternity still don't forget that Test is the goal here. If goons are out of the way, Test die easier because we help Test a lot dealing with Fraternity. So in their eyes, they were furious yesterday. A couple of the Chinese players in my fleet said that their friends in Fraternity could not believe Test messed up that badly. But like that's the thing about Fountain is that it's not Fountain that matters in the sense of, okay, is PanFam smart? Because if it was me, I would stay as far away from Test as I could while invading Delve. Because in the past, like for example, if they, like this is a theory I had yesterday, and I got told I was crazy, but the theory I had yesterday was that if the Keepstar falls in Y2, then PanFam's side can stage in Y2, right? Close off all of Fountain, casually clear Fountain at their own pace, and then Fountain's dead, right? Because we can't cross the Y2 border then if they're staging in Y2. I got told I was crazy. But that's the thing is that by staging in Y2, you stay as far away from Test and their stuff as possible, right? And in the past, that's kind of where like things broke down. Like history kind of repeats itself. Is that the fact that like not all these groups get along with each other, and over time they realize that, they remember that, and then it leads to the war breaking down. Right, this happened in the First World War B. Is eventually they declared victory.
It didn't happen until after the war was over.
Well, no, because like when we went to Delve, right, Test was still like, "Hey, we got to go evict them. We can't let them build up again. Let's go down there." And like Test went down there, and then everyone else was like, "Yeah, we're done."
Well,
but here we go. But the thing about Y2,
to your point.
So Y2 is a big deal, and it wasn't the bombing run; it was just the battle in general. There were so many opportunities to save that, but look. The biggest snafu was what I think is you brought too many people, right? Like you bring 500 carriers, which is what they've been bringing.
You're trying to sell that they should bring.
No, that's not a sell. No, it's not a sell because let's be honest, 12 like we've seen Keepstar battles before.
But it kind of sounds like Imperium is saying, "Don't outnumber us, please," because
no, it's not outnumber. Look, I'm okay. I don't speak for the Imperium because I don't talk to anybody important. I just do bombers when I feel like it. But like it's serviceability. What we noticed during the
servers did quite well. That was the hero for me. Besides U-Boat, was the servers were doing quite well.
Yeah.
I thought.
Well, actually it's funny. The servers did great, but then they blamed the servers. It was pretty funny. But if you look at one of the Keepstar kills they did it really smart, right? When they were doing the armor timer, they brought in all their carriers, had their carriers going to work, zero tie-dye whatsoever. Then, when the carriers came under threat, bridged in all their subcaps and defended the carriers that way. Then tie-dye started. But by that point, the Keepstar was at like 25% armor. It was already almost done. right? That's the way you do this. You make as little tie-dye as possible. And yeah, the defender gets into the keep star, but as you learn from the shield timer, the defenders aren't going to stop it from getting reinforced or
I know.
killed.
I think we saw that in CTAC N. They brought in only like 600 people. They wore the keep star down, and then everybody jumps in to score the kill mail, and then everybody jumps out.
Yeah. And or even
but they knew you were
it's-
coming this time. This wasn't going to be an undefended.
Well, we were coming to CTAC N. Like I was there in Bombers, right? Like we were all there, ready to go. But by keeping tie-dye down, it goes faster. Because like in J5A, when they brought the 3100, it took them like 3 hours to kill it. Whereas CTAC N, I think it was under an hour, and they were gone, done. So
yeah, when a keep star's undefended, the tactics do change quite dramatically.
But I mean, like J5A was undefended, right? And like 3,100 people were in the system shooting it, and tie-dye was just abysmal because I was there. Like that's.
I mean, that's
where...
you have to understand from a momentum point, right? Like or morale thing. That's the first keep star goons lose. So a lot of people kind of want to be there for it. Like they want to make sure that it actually happens.
It doesn't help when you have someone like ProGod, who's again, you said he was the big commander. His like to get everyone, of course, they broadcast like crazy for timers like this, right? Well, his like slogan was, "This is the last fight of Fountain. Don't miss it." And that's that. Like as a momentum swing, when that gets blocked or stopped, that tells your line members, okay, well, if that was the last fight, what's next time going to be like when we go do it again?
Well, that's this is the like Y-2. If we want to use like a sports analogy, which I know you will appreciate, Y-2 is going to be locker room material for the Imperium for the next 2 or 3 weeks. Right? This is what they're going to be able to rally behind and say, these guys threw everything at the kitchen sink and they shat the bed and we dominated. You get to repeat, like, they have to do this 180 times, like over and over again. Like this, that's why we want to talk about this.
Yeah,
right?
we actually have a timer. So the thing is when you have 60 keep stars, it takes 3 timers to kill it. Okay, so Asher came up with this thing. He's like, it's 180 fights that's going to happen. Okay, starting with Y-2.
If everyone's contested, yeah.
And that's like the really interesting thing that's been developing, right? Because when this whole war started, it was Fortress Fountain, Fortress Delve, you'll never break the walls. As it's kind of evolved, it's, Delve isn't this insurmountable fortress. It's a bog where you will die. Like you will set foot in, you will get trapped, and you will die and smothered in all the infrastructure we have and overwhelmed with bees. Right? So that's the narrative.
Well, it's not even narrative. So one thing that was talked about yesterday, like after the bombing run, Mitten said this, like really like quietly. He was like, so what happens if we anchor more now? What happens if we put more keep stars in Fountain? If they're not going to live in Y2, which is what most people think, why not anchor more?
Let's look at that boat, because last week we were talking about keep stars being put away that weren't going to be useful. And now that momentum shift, I'm looking at this just a momentum shift.
Yeah,
and
all
now
the
we're talking
timers
about
stopped
putting more keep
anchoring.
stars down.
I stopped on anchoring my keep star.
That's huge. That psychological change is huge, because again, last week we were talking about let's start to save some of the stuff by moving it out. And this week we're talking about putting more stuff down, doubling down on this. That is
double the keep stars. I mean, just imagine if you have 180 fights like that, where it's like 6-7 hours per timer, and let's say in one go it can reset it. Imagine if you had 360, because you double the keep star numbers, because keep stars are cheap, right? They're not expensive. You could do it. And that's the only benefit of keep stars. Like they suck at like gunning, and you can't kill anything, but you can put plates on them. So another thing that we never got to see, or you guys never got to see, is like the shield reinforced timer took 4 hours, but the shield doesn't have like shield extenders, but the armor has like 5 plates. So it's like 4 times the HP cap. So it takes 4 times as long in tie-dye. So the number, I think, was like 10 hours is what we were estimating that fight to be. And so the thing that really like had Mittens upset too was that like he had planned his whole day around the fact that he was going to be stuck there for like 10 hours. The meta show was going to be canceled. And then like there was no plans for anything else the rest of the day. People were getting drunk and all that stuff, and they were just, their day was shot. And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, we're done in an hour. Okay, well, shit. What am I doing today?
I got off work early.
Like I went and took a nap. It was great.
But I think Batterall pointed out a really interesting, like, this is why we're talking about how this fight went down and how it went down so perfectly for the Imperium, right? Last week, the Imperium is their mood, we're unanchoring all but 3 keep stars. Now their mood is we're putting a keep star in every system, right? One fight, one bombing run,
we already had that in Delve. But the cool thing is
that was you and SisterBliss that did that. That's amazing. Go ahead, Caleb. Sorry.
And Annalise, that's why your sports analogy was wrong. Because if you were watching me and Matterall covering this on stream, I felt like this was the Mike Tyson game that everyone was buying, because I remember that fight, right? Yes. My dad had bought access, and everyone was just ready, and oh my God, we're going to watch this long fight, and it's going to be glorious, and it's like punch, done.
Yes, that was I think to quote my father, it was, I'm never pay-per-viewing another fight again, because. Like some people went to the bathroom thinking like they're still gonna set the fight up, and then all of a sudden, boom, dead.
Come back from the bottom of this, like
if you watched our stream, it was like I think it was 19 minutes when it showed first that it was actually counting down, and I was looking at it going, it's actually potentially going to be an Imperium win, and then it was like 9 minutes, 4.5 minutes. And then it's like, I was going, is this over?
Oh, no, once it unpaused, it was done. Like, it was just done.
As soon as the bombs are in the air for the Ravens to die, it's over, because you can't respond fast enough to pause the keep star. But I think that the important thing here is kind of just to look at how the war is progressing, right? So in the very beginning, if you guys remember, the first IHUB to die on the Imperium side was done by a brave pilot in a frigate. And that was like the banner material for the Legacy side. They're like, this represents everything that we believe in the war, right? This is the perfect moment for us. And I liken that to this for the Imperium, right? It's, we not only got to hold the system, but we got to embarrass the enemy. So the important thing to look at here is, how is the PanFam and the Legacy side, the Pappy side, how are they going to respond to this? And in the next 2 weeks, I think that's going to be the very, very important thing to see. Well, the Y-2 is going to die, right? All the rest of the keep stars and found are going to die. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Which keep stars? Because they think we only have 3 there.
The groups, one, the Y-2 one. There's structure browser. I'm sure they'll find.
There's 2 more.
It's like an Easter egg.
Yeah, you gotta find it.
But the point that we're all looking at is LTech was a big momentum shift, right, in favor of Pappy at the time, and we saw a lot of things change for the next 3 weeks. That one battle, and now we're seeing, I think, another moment where it could change. It depends on how Pappy recovers, if they recover, because they literally were running. These are like 2 huge guys running at each other. One slips on a banana peel and plants his face into the fist of Boat, who's coming at him.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, Killer B said this too, and people missed this at the beginning. And it's kind of a big deal. Is there were like 9 different things that were planned out by different people, ready to go on this like fight that never actually happened because the fight just done. So, like, people handing out ships that didn't get handed out in time because of tie-dye, people's probes not working, things that were like planned to like, oh, surprise, it didn't manifest, all because of this. Whereas like the next fight, because now like tie-dye is going to be a thing and like you have all this stuff, the next fight you'll see those things, and that's where it's going to be even crazier, because it's almost like I guess to use a fight, it's like a Tyson fight. Like you get that 1-2 punch. You don't know if Tyson has the stamina, and that's the thing with the next fight is that 10-hour slog. Who's got the tricks up their sleeve for that? The 10 round.
And that's why I used it, right? Because last time that I was like heavily prepping for looking at a big fight, because I really like this. was when we actually covered the other big boat fight where Boat was doing his laundry in tie-dye stuff. And it's like, it was a whole day, right? And we had this live block and everyone was just piling on all day. And it was like this whole massive event. So I had really expected and almost hoped that this was going to be something like that. I thought we were going to have a lot of coverage. Nothing. It was like dead, gone.
There were a lot of angry people. I will say this, like on our side, because of the tie-dye. So Y2 had 2,200 people in local with 0 tie-dye. But 1DQ was completely tie-dyed at 2,200 people, like full 10% tie-dye, just undocking and like traveling. So was ZXB and 5-G, like basically the routes through Delve. Same thing with some of the systems like deeper in Fountain to get to Y2. So like it was very surprising that like the amount of tie-dye outside of Y2 and how well Y2 was holding up, you know?
If I can make a suggestion for you, and I do this for all the big wars, and this is something that CCP actually suggested to do, so it's not me just abusing the system. You should do a fleet fight notification for your staging system whenever you're going to form. That way it's going to be on its own node.
It didn't
won't
like go through, I guess, or I did it for Y2, but I don't, or not Y2 for 1DQ, but I guess it didn't go through or something. I don't know, but
I mean, how many of those dedicated servers does CCP have though? Because you can't really, you can't put a dedicated node on every single potential system in a route to get there. And
you can do it on every staging
else.
System, right? So every staging system for people involved with the war, they can handle that. I got word that is something that they can do.
Yeah, they can. They can. Yeah.
Can I take Elise back just a little bit, because one of the things you were talking about is this whole morale thing, right? And I was just wondering, because I think I've mentioned this once or twice, can they afford to risk Y-2 again as the next big fight? Because if they lose again, that would be horrible. Shouldn't they go for another target, or do you think that they should actually just all in and then just win this one?
I mean, I think we might be overstating it to say that another failed Y-2 would be doom and gloom for the Pappy side, right? So they've taken, if we look at like a macroscopic whole time, they've taken 1.5 regions away from the Imperium. So they kind of have this little bank of little successes that they can fall back on. There's 3 keep stars down. There's going to be another 3, I guess both is 5, that are probably going to drop without any contest, right? I don't think the Imperium is going to form for the KVN one, right? So, well, maybe I'll be wrong. Also, but there are the Pappy side has had just blistering success on the Fountain front. So that's kind of, I don't think it's a risk to go for Y-2 swing and miss. PL and NC have had some troubles in the system of Y-2 and kind of rebounded from it. So I think it's going to be okay.
Actually, very first time you had troubles in Y2, I was there in the black screen that Seamus.
Yeah, you also had really troubles with us. I actually had a plan to use that spot as the Sino in spot for everyone, but no one wanted to do it because it's like 240 AU, and you guys probably had all the bookmarks.
No, they moved
anyways.
it. They would have moved it, right? Because they pulled all the bookmarks closer. But yeah, so here's another thing too. With Y2 being taken out, like you can see them going for it again, because if Y2 falls, you can't defend the rest of Fountain. Like KVN and O-P can be easily defended because we can bridge from Y2, right? And if that keep star's still there, you can still put a Titan there safely, and you can still bridge out, right? And 1 Titan or 2 Titans in Y-2 means it's easy to get to those. And that's the reason like CTEC-N was basically undefended during the first 2 timers, because you have to cross another gap. You have to bridge and then cross a gap, or you bridge and bridge again. Whereas with KVN and OP and Y2, I mean, yeah, Y2 you have to gate in, but it's right there. So that's why I think the next few keep stars, next 4 or 5 are going to be highly contested. And who knows if Delve will. I mean, of course, there's that 108 timers thing, but as far as like you have all of these keep stars that are left in Fountain, they're all in range of Y2. So it makes it real easy to defend those. And with them staging an IC, it's the same thing both ways, right? Like they can bridge directly there too. So That'll be cool.
It should be interesting to see, as Caleb points out, like it'll be interesting to see how it develops on the fountain front, right? Like, are they going to go for Y2 again? Spoiler alert, yes. Are they going to go for other ones instead? Also, also yes, right? So there are still some faction Fortizars in Fountain that need to be taken down. I know, I believe, and I'm not sure on this, but I believe the Imperium thought Fountain would act as a buffer for a lot longer than it did. And after this win, I think it might. Like, I think they've salvaged the floodplains a little bit of Fountain.
Well,
it's such a huge win.
Yeah, and it was a sorry, Elise, it was a perfect win. But here's the thing, and this is to Caleb, I don't see a scenario. I honestly don't, but I'm less experienced than Boat and Elise for sure, where this is such a shift that you see the Imperium coming back into Fountain.
No,
I don't see that.
No, I'm just saying that the morale, if there's a second attempt on this and it fails, that would just be such a it would be a 1-2 punch, and I think the Boat gloating would be horrible. It would not audio files would break, and it would just not work at all.
Another thing too is that a lot of people don't realize this compared to the last war. The last war, you had all these guys work together so well because money talks. And there were a lot of like little groups that had like 20, 30 supers and that could like run around doing things that were paid to stay blue to Test and Horde and all these groups. They were paid billions, hundreds of billions at one point. I think one group made 800 billion, and they only had like 20 characters on every battle, right?
So do you think Billy should take some of the Tranquility Trade Tower money and just start paying people?
Well, he does, right? Horde and Test get paid what?
So does Goons.
3/4 of the money. Like Test, they get like a huge percentage of it already. Horde gets all of it. Like Test, like that's the thing with Test is like Test gets their share, but they split it up with Legacy. Horde just gets it. Like NC and then I don't think PL get any of the cut.
Right.
But that's the thing is like unlike
I believe we get a taste of that cheddar, as the kids say.
Yeah. So like unlike the
Piece of the pie.
unlike the last war,
Those kids are now adults, at least. That's how old we're getting.
you don't have you don't have this like this gigantic flow of money keeping people's allegiances together, which is why Caleb's point of you can't have another Y2 happen like it just did, because then you'll have these like little alliances, 10 or 20 little alliances. They're like, why the fuck am I still here? Like,
well, yeah,
this is not working.
You're right, and I think a lot of your rhetoric is built to make that more clear to them. Like, why are you fighting for Test? I
don't understand it either, because the thing is no matter
do you
what
legitimately not understand it, or is it something that
no, seriously, like I legitimately don't understand.
Has it ever happened in reverse where you did understand it, or did you never understand?
No, I haven't understood it for 12 years. Like this has been an ongoing thing since the days of Bob, right? Like you always have these little tiny groups that, like, okay, the concept of renters is baffling to me. How someone could be a renter in a game like EVE Online just baffles me. You know what I mean? So because there's so many groups that you can be a part of that, like, take anyone. Brave takes literally anyone.
I will say, just for clarity, I will say for clarity, the Imperium has had renters, and they also have been blue to Test. So
yeah, it's just I didn't understand what.
No, but I get your point. You're saying like join a proper group.
No, don't even join Goons. Like I'm not saying flip sides.
No. But join a proper group, whatever group it is. Join a proper group. Don't just hide under the umbrella of.
There's a quote from Ocean's 11 where the guy's like, when Basher rejoins the like group, and he's like, man, it's gonna be nice to work with proper villains again. Like that's what I think when I'm like listening to these like guys talk that I've never heard like talk about this war. When you hear them talk about the war, it's like, so that makes sense, So
like on this topic, I want to step in and say renters and smaller alliances are proper groups. Like there's
small alliances, sure, but not renters. Renters aren't people. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it comes down to like a lot of EVE Online players have there's so many different things you can be doing in EVE Online, and a lot of players have such a difficulty relating with people who do things that they don't do. So, and I think this is kind of along those lines. Like people in low sec don't understand the null bears. The people in the null war don't understand the people. Why would you live in low when you can have super cap price out here, right?
But see, that's not the case with this, though. Like, I understand the gameplay of low sec and wormhole space, and I understand the gameplay of like Stain Coalition and how they've lived in Stain their entire lives, or the Bulgarians that live in Fountain that have never left NPC Fountain. No matter who lives there, they're still there, right? Like, that's understandable. Renters, that's the one group I could just never see. Like, I've never understood the concepts or why you'd want to be one. That's not the concept. I understand like why it's used and making money and all that, but to be one. The only time I've ever seen someone be a renter that I've known, that I've interacted with, has literally told me, I do it because my 5 Nixes can bought in peace, and I'm never going to get bothered.
What's the difference between being a renter and being blue to a mega block?
The difference is that guy that's blue to a mega block can still go on fleets with the guy that's blue. Like,
so I will say one thing, and I'm sorry if I'm.
Go ahead, at least. Go ahead.
I was going to say that. But what Bro says kind of rings true to a lot of the Imperium, right? So after World War B, when the then CFC moved to Delve, they came up with a genius plan that changed the game forever, and they were light years ahead of everyone. They kind of went with this mentality of, no one wants to be a renter, screw that, but we need people in our space, so why don't we just take these would-be renters and absorb them? Like, we'll just take them into our fold. This whole manifest destiny of Delve thing, give them all these riches that they could. These people would have been renters in another scheme, but instead the Imperium took them into the fold. So it's interesting to hear both perspectives.
Well, okay, yeah. So that was something that never been done before, right? So like,
exactly.
It was the idea of.
Isn't that just Empire? Like, isn't that an Empire? You have.
It's the Hadrian model. It's basically what Hadrian did in the Roman Empire. Basically allowed everyone to get citizenship.
Yeah, Aerith came up with this. So the idea was the Aerith came up with this, and the idea was that we could take renters from other people doing this. We're not going to charge you a rental fee. Just pay your taxes. Okay, whatever taxes you make, pay us.
Which amounts to the same thing.
Well, no, kind of. In a way, yes. but think about it like this. They're not having to pay up front. They're not having to pay tens of billions a month. So even if they make nothing, if they just PvP while holding 10 systems, right? Which is different than renters. Renters have to make money. Otherwise, they're going to be negative every month, right? They're not going to be able to have a sustainable income. But with our model,
I will tell you the difference.
It prevents it.
Hold on. Here's the difference. And I've heard this because we had a show on renting, and we had Sadis on. We also had Lady Scarlet. These are 2 people that have rented to more players than anybody else in the game. And the difference in the model primarily was that if you are renting and not part of the actual military group, it's your name on it. At least that's what it used to be. And that was a big difference. It's your situation that you've built under the protection of somebody else. The other way is you're a citizen of a bigger empire, not necessarily your own.
You're missing the benefit, right? The benefit with what Aerith did is that, or I think it was Killer yesterday that said, I don't understand why Imperium doesn't have a proper taxation or income streams. Like, well, because it's granular and it's progressive. Again, back to what Bo just said, it doesn't matter if you're spending 10 hours in EVE or 40 hours in EVE, because proportionally, you're going to be proportionally taxed. And that's why the Imperium's model is a little bit more complicated to maybe understand from the outside, at least, unless you kind of understand the economic idea. But the point is, back to the whole thing of cutting people that are inactive or less active than you want, well, then you're losing actual activity. You're losing labor hour, you're losing value. So the Imperium model is way more modern and way more superior than any of the rental schemes, because if you have to kick out your renter, you're not going to get any money at all for that until you can rent it out again.
Here's the thing. Okay, another reason why this system worked really well is it kept the ADMs up just because they wanted to. But like, here's a thing that's different between this model and renters. When someone's space gets invaded, renters pack up and leave and go rent from someone else, because you can't be making money if you can't rat and mine. So you're going to pick up and move. And Test even announced this before the war started. They told their guys, okay, our goal is to take the next couple of months and siphon away their moneymakers, take away their miners and their ratters, pull them into other groups, take away the Imperium's income stream over time, because all these guys aren't going to be able to make money and whatnot. And that's what would work normally under a rental model. But it doesn't work when there's no renters involved, because everyone realizes, okay, let's just defend this stuff and we'll go back to making truckloads of money. But I got something to leak you. What would you like to leak?
I want the leak, but let me just say this: have renters, not renters, have members of the Imperium left during this war since it started in July?
Not that I'm aware of, but I haven't been keeping too much track. But I will say this: a group that a lot of people expected to up and leave because of the situation that went down of how they got evicted from their space was Ranger Regiment and Dracarys. And I see more activity, like they fill a full fleet of like 200 dudes in their time zone and fight test on their own just fine. And that's kind of something that's surprising to a lot of people in that situation. So they're still in period basis. They still have their keep stars there. They're still doing on that period. Is it period basis?
Yeah, they're in period basis.
The keep stars are still there and everything. So I have a leak for you.
Let's have it.
And this is from somewhere that I probably shouldn't be leaking, but it's an image and it's going to go into chat.
Careful.
But you know how everyone tends to share like things going on. So this is
is this a robbery?
This may or may not be the Matani's hangar after yesterday.
So I'm gonna put it up in. Yeah.
So if you want to put it on screen, go ahead. But yeah, so there it is, right there. That is the plan.
So what we're seeing, that those that can't see it, a ton of structures, usually big structures like faction fortizars, and 17 keep stars in inventory.
Yeah. So before yesterday, I think the number was a lot less because people were trying to get theirs pulled up and like got rid of. But then they realized that we need more, so they made more, got more, and they got donations and bought more. But apparently, this image was in a place that I'm not supposed to have access to. But you can't have fun without this kind of stuff. So
my favorite part of the last show, which was one of my favorite shows, was like, you can't stop the boat.
You can't. You gotta let the people know what's going on. But if you remember, we made that Dyson sphere of like faction forts that we got from Declan when they gave us like 42 faction forts, and we put them all in like 1DQ and like a nice little sphere. We still have a lot of those like left over, ready to go, and that's what you're seeing here. Like a lot of these are, I guess I could share this. A lot of this stuff is initiatives that was pulled up from Fountain, like before Fountain was invaded, because we knew eventually Fountain would fall, right? So a lot of this stuff does come from Fountain and like Initiative and Bastion and stuff, and now it's kind of like being centralized. And here's another thing too that a lot of alliances don't have, is that our Keepstar policy is, and faction fortizars are all held under one corp, with the supreme access being one person, who can like get rid of people or add people to that corp. So the control there, it's very structured. So by having all of that under mittens, it makes things, Can
you take a second screenshot with the value listed at the bottom? That's what people are calling for, because that would prove it's not on the test center.
Like I went to like a Google Drive that had like all this asset stuff, and apparently because you remember I used to be a goon director, and I'm not anymore.
Well, here's the reason that people may not believe it, and that is that if it's on the test center, all that stuff will be valueless, and so then you would know that it's not test center. And that's
if I can get another one here, I'll get it. Hold on.
All right.
So I still am really amused, because last week it was we're pulling up our keep stars. Now we're dropping these like 4,000 extra keep stars. That's how important one fight can be.
And it was one moment in one fight too. I mean, it was the unplug or the knockout punch, but it doesn't take colossal giant fights. It takes interesting pivot points. That's EVE Online.
And I think the really funny part about this whole thing, and why I'm glad Boat's here, I'm always grateful for Boat, but especially today, if the Imperium wins that timer yesterday, but in a different way, this momentum shift doesn't happen as drastically. It takes the Imperium winning plus the Imperium just decimating test in the process.
It's not that we won, because if you look at the battle report, it was even, right? Like we killed like 110 bill, lost like 90 bill. But so those numbers don't matter, but it's just like the fashion that we won in is what made it such a big deal.
But if we get you back on the show next time, can you get screenshots from Aerith's hangar or the Cabal resources?
I want to sponsor Radio Boat. So Boat, anytime you want to come on and do some long form.
Also,
we're all about it.
Getting yelled at, so.
You're getting yelled at again?
Yeah, so they pulled my access. What I was trying to explain is, when you're a director in Goons, you get access to like folders and files and stuff, like Trello, and like we used to have for INN, and and if you're no longer a streamer, they pull your access. So same thing with that. Well, they didn't pull my access from the Google Drive, and so that's where I got that image from. But now they have, because apparently they're watching the show.
We finally have an Imperium audience on the show.
They actually watched the show.
We did it.
Yeah, James,
we bridged the gap. We just needed Boat for 2 weeks.
I got an angry PM from Jay Amaziness.
Oh, it's Jay. He's so nice. Yeah. I can't imagine him being.
Apparently, that was Jay Amaziness' screenshot. He's not happy.
Well,
but what's the best part though is like, so you'll have like people in chat like screaming, "Oh, that's lies," but the problem is like you can't. When it comes to Citadels, there's no point in lying because we have 60 keep stars down, right? There's nothing wrong with putting up another 17. Like, if instead of 180, if you make it 360 eventually, it'll be great. Like, Billy knows all about like building these things. You put down as many as you humanly possibly can. They have a ton. I don't know if you've seen that, but their keep star like route to the north. They like set up one where they could like literally hopscotch from Esoteria all the way to the drones on keep stars. So keep stars, for as far as like making assets like easy to move around, they're cool. But
I will say one thing, Bo, and I don't want this to be taken the wrong way at all. I mean, total respect. Your brand of narrative management, we'll call it, is the best that has ever existed in EVE Online, and I've always appreciated it, whether I'm on your side or against it. It is absolutely entertaining all the time.
See, the problem is a lot of people tend to be confused by this, but I'm one of few goons who have never like gone on vacations to other groups. Like I've never seen a reason to. Like that's another thing I never understood is like Villy did this where he's like when he left the Imperium the most recent time. He was like, "Oh, I'm going to go on vacation and I'm just going to go do my thing. And yeah, I'm not going to shoot goons and stuff." And then he joins TESS and immediately announces he's declaring war on goons, right? So you tend to have that, like Pittsburgh, just up and leaves and, "Oh, I'm not going to shoot goons because, they were mean to me." And then he joins the TESS, or was it NC? And like immediately declares that he's going to like shoot goons. Like he's an interesting character.
I thought he got kicked.
Well, he had a choice, either get kicked or leave, right?
Well, so, yeah, but like the judge says, "Sorry, CO2, I'm going to unplug you and take all your money." Oh, but this isn't against the guys, right? I'm going to support you guys. I'm going to figure something out. But he took all the money and ran to the Imperium. So it happens on both sides. Well, like people don't do what they say they're going to do.
Yeah, but that's the problem. Is so if you look at the Imperium's history, and this happens to PL sometimes. Back in the day, PL would have their dread caches stolen. But the guy that would steal it within like a couple weeks would eventually come back and just give everything back. And that's because
that's Elise. I'm sure that's Elise. That's Elise working people.
But like that's because you don't want to leave the group that's fun. Like you don't want to just like walk away. And I do, and then like, that's my thing with the goons is people that tend to join goons that stole something from someone and join goons tend to leave just as flamboyantly. And most recently, a guy named Verticio did that, right? Where he he robbed PanFam for like 400 bill, and then he was in goons for a while and did stuff with Snuff, and then Snuff kind of like worm-tongued him and Pen of Smash worm-tongued him, and then he joined Snuff. And on his way out, he killed a bunch of people and leaked a bunch of things. So you have that happen.
Wasn't he just praised? Like, was that recent?
No, that was a year ago now.
Oh, okay. No.
Yeah, it's been a while. But like you tend to have this. Like we had a goon director one time where I don't know if this was known, but I don't mind sharing it. As like a bunch of goon directors, we went to Mexico because a buddy of mine happened to own a 5-star hotel on a beach in Mexico and was like, "Yo, let's go." And so all these goon directors were invited because I couldn't think of any other goons to take with me because he said I had to take goons. So because he plays Eve and he's awesome. And so I told like 10 directors, I was like, "Yo, you guys want to go to Mexico? Free trip." And we stayed at this beautiful resort. But this one director, and I can't remember the guy's name, got really angry and jealous that we were off having fun in Mexico while he was having to like defend the homeland. And so he ended up leaking all of the director logs. So
What is that?
I can't remember the guy's name. It started with a D. I know he was from Korea, but like you have this happen like where people, I don't know. I guess it's like with me and a lot of people I know in Goons, the relationships that transition to other games and like out of Eve in real life are more important than like having fun in Eve sometimes. And a lot of people seem to not understand that with Eve Online. It makes it unique. Like when I play other games where I'm not playing with Goons, Lemba was his name. That was the one.
Lemba, yeah.
Yeah,
The Lemba log.
yeah, that was Lemba.
Yeah, that was huge.
But so you have a lot of like people that tend to join Goons and get into positions of power that weren't originally like with Goons or like on SA or a part of it, the club, I guess you could call it.
Mhm.
They tend to get power and then they abuse it because they were like, "Oh, cool, I get to go to my next place and keep playing Eve and having fun." And Goons are boring now, so you have stuff like that happen.
Well, yeah, that's interesting. If you're not part of the actual like upper echelon clique that's part of the
not even-
family,
Well, not even
Then
that. It's like
you have less loyalty.
even
I
like
guess.
a lot of line members, right, that come from SA will still like they'll have more loyalty towards Goons as a whole or the group. And like I guess a more recent analogy too would be Snuff, right? Snuff were like enemies of ours in World War B or the Casino War, right? Like the very first war, because this is World War B, right? Yeah, so it's Casino War. In the first war, and they were big enemies of ours. And then like that war ends, and then they came and joined us for a time and worked really well with Initiative. And they were buddies with us, and then they're back to being enemies again a short time later. So you don't see that a lot with certain people in Goons. If you know who you're looking for, they'll be in Goons the whole time and never like bounce around.
Well, there's some. We can explore this a little bit, and then we got to go on to other subjects.
Sorry.
But that's okay. But there is something to. It seems like everybody in the upper echelons of Goon Swarm is well off.
What do you mean?
Like they're not struggling in real life. They're not. There's nothing that's more valuable in Eve to them.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they're tempted less by screwing up their relationship.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, let me explore that one. So Cartoon. Do you remember Cartoon, the infamous Goon CEO that stole from Goons? We'll use that one for an example. Cartoon was a guy who was a spy guy in Goons that spied on Bob for us for several years. He wasn't an SA member. He was the first ever CEO to become CEO that wasn't SA, like from something awful. And it was given to him because the guy that had him before him, Zappawork, was like, "Look, I'm done. I'm just giving it to the guy I know the most." And he just like threw CEO at Cartoon. Well, when Cartoon got married, his wife was like, "Look, you can't play games anymore. Like, I'm done with this." And he's like, "Well, I can get 10 grand out of this game to pay for the wedding that we're going to have in Mexico if I just steal everything. I can RMT it." And his wife got really intrigued by that thought and was like, "Yeah, then steal everything and let's go to Mexico and have a big wedding." And he did. He stole like 10 grand worth of in-game stuff, tried to RMT it, got banned. He got banned for it because CCB knew exactly what he was going to do because he made it public that he was going to do it. And so, yeah, so you have a personality like that where the value of his thing is that. But I told this
It's very
to my
romantic,
stream.
by the way. Cartoon
this-
as a romantic character is interesting.
I told this to my stream last week. Like, someone sends me a trillion ISK right now in game, I will walk away from Eve. I'll space retire because that was always my goal as like a newbie. I wanted to get to a trillion and like.
You never hit a trillion?
No, I've never hit a trillion. I made like 400 billion back in the day, but then I stopped making ISK like 6 years ago, and I just kind of like lived on my retirement fund. So I told someone if they deposit a trillion ISK, and someone said they didn't believe me, but like if they threw a trillion ISK in my account, I would drop boat out of Goons and like quit Eve. Like I'd still be friends with everyone and like play games with.
Would you change sides? Because I think Billy has like $1 trillion in his pocket.
No, I wouldn't change sides. I just quit. I wouldn't play. There's no point.
I just love how this conversation went with. I've never left Goons. I'm a Goon lifer. I've never vacationed elsewhere. Give me $1 trillion. They're dead to me.
No, because like I wouldn't betray Goons. Like I wouldn't go like join another side for $1 trillion. But I would just quit the game. Like I would just like stop playing because I've always. Like, let's be honest, in my real life in the last 2 years, it's been hyper busy, and I didn't play much Eve last year, if anyone was there. But, yeah, so that is a thing. But you have to realize this, too. A lot of the Goon leadership types are all same personality types because a lot of them are lawyers. Some are doctors. Some are, like, have doctorates in, like, chemistry and physics. So they're, like, intellectuals, or in some cases, pseudo-intellectuals. And or academic types who all have met up in real life and they all talk about the same things because they all have the same like real world experiences, and then in some cases all work together. So
in some cases, it's funny, talking in stations is very similar. Lawyers, doctors, and pseudo intellectuals. Pointing at myself.
That's a weird Eve thing, right?
It is.
My corporate Eve, if you look at the leadership in Habit and count the number of JDs, it's like 75%.
Wow.
There's so many people.
That's lawyers, 75% lawyers?
Yeah.
Juris Doctorate? Oh, wow. I missed it, Baleful. What was your comment?
Oh, I'm team pseudo-intellectual myself.
Yeah, you're right. Go pseudo-intellectuals. All right.
It's interesting. So another thing too is
last thing. Go ahead.
So, someone just messaged me. Oh, Jay Amazing says, "But if I give you 1.1 trillion, would you stay?" But no. Wait. If I send you a $1 trillion worth of Plex right now, do you promise to leave free forever? Hell yeah! You send me $1 trillion worth of Plex, I'll walk away today. Like right after the show's over.
You can check
100%.
off that goal and you're done.
Definitely. My fiance would be so happy. But here's a question. And this is my last little bit about this war and my side of the attempt to spin narratives because I'm not important. Why is it that we see Villy on more talk shows than he does FC? So yesterday was the first fleet that I've seen Villy FC in like a month. Usually he does a lot more like coordination and like running things, but Villy at heart is an FC. So
in World War B, the first one, Villy was instrumental in coordinating. And I'm not in the coordinator channel. I'm a retired old man now, so I just sit back and press F1. But I was in the coordinator channels for the World War B the first time. Villy was instrumental in coordinating people and managing expectations, managing egos, and juggling everything. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's a similar role that he's put on now. I will say, like, if you have to look at the most influential people in EVE Online in the last 5 years, Villy's in the top 2 in terms of the effect that he's had on the game. And that's not me simping for Villy or anything like that. I think that's just reality.
Maybe.
Yeah, if you trace his career.
But that's the thing that's like interesting is like for a name like Villy, if I was Villy, which I'm not, but I was Villy in test in the position he holds, him like making a broadcast going, I'm going to do something, is going to get way more people to show up for test than just some random. And that's the same thing with like Horde and Alpha Star Pilot, Goons and Asher, or John Hartley. John Hartley just has to ping harpies. One word, and he'll fill a fleet, right? Like, but it takes other FCs, lots of words and reasons, and why is this FC calling my name? So that's the thing I don't get about Villy is that he spends more time trying to be a narrative than leading his men into battle. I mean, that's probably why the progress in Pure Blind and Aquarius is nothing. Right, and they've had to tell their guys, "Oh, let's wait for Horde to finish Fountain, guys. Let's wait." And that's what they literally said. They said, "We can't really make progress until Horde's done in Fountain." And well, after yesterday, it's kind of hard to make progress,
Okay, so one question that I wanted to bring up, and this is the last thing on this bigger war. Is it true that Goon Swarm or the Imperium put a bunch of Astra houses into one system, like 70 or so? Have you heard anything about that?
Wait, what happened? Hold on. Just say this again.
Astra houses all in one system, like piled in a bunch in Esoteria?
Oh yeah, we did that. Oh yeah. So yeah, that's us. So I'll tell you a story about that. So a couple weeks ago, we anchored 69 Astra houses across like all of Esoteria and Paragon Salt, spread them out like crazy, and they were able to defend like, you know, almost all of them, and they killed like all but like 3. But this time we dropped 69 in 3 different systems. The thing is I don't know if Billy wasn't paying attention, but he didn't notice the other 2 systems. And so out of like the what's the math on that? 69 times 3. Out of all of those that one drops.
You did 70 Astra houses in 3 different systems.
Yeah, three systems. Yes.
For a total of 210.
No, wait, so yeah, 207? Yeah, 207. 200-ish, let's just say that. But what's interesting is we put all our focus on the one system, and we had bombers, and we had Stain with us, and we farmed up like 400 dudes. But for some reason, like nobody in test leadership was around when they came online. So they didn't kill any of them. I think they killed 1. And the number went down to 68. So we made memes that said maybe they just don't like 69ing. But that was the joke. Because we couldn't, like, the guys that dropped them didn't have enough fits to fit them all because they expected at least 90% to die. So they only had like 20 so ready to be fitted. And it became a mad scramble to try and fit all these things. Because they didn't realize that like all these would get aligned. And so, yeah, Test has actually killed almost all the ones in that one system. But yeah, that's like the thing. And actually, you know where that strategy comes from? It's Test. They did it to FRT. So I don't know if
what's the point of that?
Okay, so let me explain. So the thing with Eve is that you can make structure timers happen like it used to be. You can make structure timers happen when you want it. 6 o'clock Eve time on a Wednesday. 0600 Eve on a Wednesday. Or downtime on a Thursday. Right? So Fraternity took advantage of this. With Sino Jammers and structure timers, they would make it so Test was miserable. Well, then Billy came up with this idea of what would happen if I just start anchoring hundreds of citadels in US Prime and daring them to come shoot them. And if they don't shoot them, we live out of them and we slowly march forward. And it worked. It pulled FRT to do fights in US time and it burned FRT out. So we're just doing the same thing that they did to FRT, but we're doing it on a whole nother scale. Like I showed you in that picture, we have like I think one logistics guy showed me a picture of 1,000 Astra houses in Stain, ready to go. And the cool thing about Astra houses is they fit in blockade runners. You take 100 guys, you could drop 100 at the same time. So the reason they did 69 was the meme 69. They dropped 69 within seconds of each other.
Did they really do that because of the meme?
Yes, just because of the meme.
That's not very mature.
They would have done 100, but 69 was a better number. It's a cool number. Like our enemies don't know what the 69 is, so they killed one, and they didn't get to enjoy 69. It's really rude.
All right, great. Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so that's just Astra houses, and the thing is we call them roach motels because you can literally drop hundreds of these things all over the place. You could drop thousands a day, and yeah, it may cost some money, but thanks to TTT, it's funded, right? Like it doesn't have to cut into our expenses.
Got it. Okay. Very interesting. Not only did it happen once, it's happened 3 times in 3 different systems, and I think Esoteria. So we'll see how they deal with that. Boat, thanks very much. We're going to wrap up this part of the show. We got other things to talk about in the last few minutes here. I want to shift to a big dread battle that was happening in Kamal, I think it was. Is that right?
Yeah. It was another fight with Snuff and CVA versus Wrecking Crew, Ashra Khan, and assorted allies over the Fortizar called Hippie Garden in Kamela, which Ashra Khan has had for some time there. Kamela being one of their main homes for a long time. So basically, it was a 100 billionist lost fight, so not the biggest of the Snuff conflicts by any stretch, but significant enough. RC and its allies, Ashrakan and all that group, had a lot of Tempests and Macarials and had their own cap wing and did really well against the Snuff subcaps, which was a lot of Tempest Fleet issues and Balgorns and Vindicators. But Snuff out-escalated Wrecking Crew with capital ships, basically. A lot of dreadnoughts were dropped. I think the count on grid was like 50 or 60, and RC just didn't want to commit that much to the fight. So ultimately, the Fortizar Helltimer was lost. But 100 billionist fight in low sec happened yesterday. I was flying a Guardian in the whole thing, so.
Were you? Well, I saw part of it. We had on Talking in Stations. We now share screens a lot as people are playing the game, whether it's Eve Echoes or Eve Online. And Manixar was in there showing me the dread fight, and it was quite a brawl. I mean, they were like they were all mixed up together. It wasn't your usual fight. It really looked like a space battle.
Yeah, there was one complaint I heard from one of the Dread pilots that the Naglfar fit they had, and where they dropped them, it like wasn't fit right to be able to lock out to its shooting range. So there are some of the Dreads just got whelped without being able to fully participate on our side, the Wrecking Crew, Ashrakan, assorted other groups side. So Snuff just had the capital prowess in this particular fight, mainly because it was a question of whether or not Wrecking Crew was willing to commit, because they are the entity in the whole side with the capital supremacy.
One second. If I want to have something appear on screen, who should I PM? Matterall or McLeod?
Me.
McLeod.
Okay, McLeod. I'm gonna match. I just got linked an image. So you were asking about those 70 Citadel structures, how they get dropped like that. Yeah. So this is an image from one guy doing it, and it's like a GIF. It's like 20 seconds long, and it literally shows like how he does it. Real quick, if you want to see it real quick.
Yep. Just give me a second.
Yeah, I thought this might be something beautiful to show you. So it was linked to me just now, and they said, "But you got to share this with the chat."
All right,
somebody
we'll put that.
Somebody in the chat is criticizing me because I didn't mention laser knocks. Yes, laser hawks and hard knocks were there too.
Laser knocks. Oh, we lost Elisa. Hopefully he can find his way back.
Here we go.
You got it, Max. Make it full screen. It's really pretty.
I think laser hawks and hard knocks actually had a bigger subcap fleet and stuff too.
Just tabs through his clients.
Alt tab.
Yep. So this one guy did 10 of them, and then that's like from the first time we put it in like different systems. Yeah, so that gives you an idea how it doesn't need like 100 guys; it's just 100 characters to drop them all.
Nice.
Yep, that easy. Thanks, Billy, for the idea, by the way.
All right. Thanks for showing us how that worked. And so you credit Billy with that idea, but he was puzzled about that idea and what it meant and what it was. He was looking at that like, what kind of strange magic is this?
Magic, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing that's happened besides that Dread Brawl, which was really impressive, actually, I wish we could have gone live at that moment, but I was caught by surprise. Is the Triglavian War. There's wars all over EVE Online. Low sec wars, null sec wars, but there's also stuff inside of high sec with like Triglavians and stuff. Welcome back, Lise.
Hey, sorry. There we go.
And actually, as you just said that, a world first just happened in the Triglavian War. One of the systems that had been pushed to first liminality, that means the Triglavian side wins the first stage of the invasion. And this being a high sec system, Arshat fell to low sec, so it became low sec. And we just and the reason why I'm so tired and out of it today is because I did an all-nighter helping with this. We pushed it from first liminality all the way up. We contested it, pushed it back. It just turned back to high sec into an EdenCom redoubt, which is our second stage. So that's the first time either side's second stage has been pushed back in the invasion.
Nice. Which system is that again?
Arshat in Domain.
Congratulations.
So that's great. My all-nighter has not gone. Well, it's not over yet because we still have to push up the redoubt to Fortress, but it's a lot easier now.
But,
anyway, the main.
but your hard work paid off.
Yes.
Nice.
But this week has actually been kind of hectic for people doing the Triglavian War because the amount of systems that the Triglavians invade has gone from 3 back up to 6. So we had 4 systems out of the 6 that spawned in the last cycle that were able to go liminal. That means they're the systems that don't end after the first stage. The systems the Triglavians want. If they're high sec, they drop to fake low. If they're low sec, they drop to fake null, right? In the second stage, if the Triglavians win. So those 4 systems spread the Triglavians supporting players and the EdenCom supporting players thin because they're trying to bounce back and forth around the cluster because they're in 4 different areas of the Empire space, right? Low and high sec. And if we can secure this one, EdenCom will have won 3 out of 4 of those. But there's a new one just dropped that's also capable of going liminal.
Is there a lore reason or explanation for why the win
why they can why it went up from 3 to 6? Sorry, I cut you off.
Or any other lore reason that you thought I was saying, because that sounds really interesting.
I thought you were saying why do some systems end after one timer and other systems can go to the 2 different timers?
Okay, yeah, let's go with that one.
So the Triglavians are looking for certain types of stars. Any blue star or K5 yellow stars. It's either K5 or G5. I'm too tired. But one type of yellow star and 3 types of blue stars that the Triglavians want. If they invade an orange star, there's only 1 timer, and you win or you lose, and it doesn't drop security status if the Triglavians win. But if it's a blue or a certain type of yellow star, and the Triglavians win the first round, security status drops. So if you look at all the ice mining systems that were hit, you'll see a lot of dead AFK orcas when the system flipped to low sec.
Oof.
Which is actually kind of hilarious. Nobody's going to deny that.
Question though, system name is for a long time. Hold on, for a long time. I have been criticized for my low sec naming of systems because I always mispronounce them. Is that like an R's hat, like you wear a hat on your butt, or is it R shat?
I think it's the more pirate themed one. Actually.
Yeah, I like the pirate.
Yeah, R shat. Yeah. No, but like there's a citadel in Arshat called Wave Humper. So like, could you imagine if somebody walked up to you and you're like, you Arshat Wave Humper? Like, because that's what we're warping to the dock because it's such a free part.
It's just as childish as it goes. It's normal, okay? They have naming conventions that are great.
Awesome. Congratulations, though, EdenCom. I know you're an FC for them.
Yeah.
Turning around that system.
A lot of the big Eden, like the great part about this was like we pushed it from like 9 p.m. Eastern to like just they're still pushing it now. So it's been like 14 hours. No, what time is it? It's 2 p.m. So it's been a long time that people have gone to bed. More people who woke up from the EU time zone went on. Like it's like enemy groups who are working together to push it because EdenCom side, the backbone of the EdenCom side has been by and large, and not entirely, but by and large, our peers who are like defending the empires, right? And like it's like a test of international cooperation. So like this fleet was made up of like a lot of people who have been shooting each other for years, and a lot of characters that don't like each other. So it's just really bizarre for being somebody who's in that in group to just see all these people happening, all these things happening.
It reminds me of like the model UN in like high school and stuff like that. That's kind of like the Edencom things. You just have all these personalities, force them to work together to try and solve the problem. And the Triglavian just like triangles are cool, pew pew pew. Like that's actually, I am not involved at all, but that's how it looks like from the outside perspective.
You'd think that, but actually a lot of the Triglavians, and obviously it's not all encompassing, but the Triglavian event has been pretty good for getting non-RPers into RP, because a lot of the people who just think, oh, Triglavians are cool, pew pew pew, start reading about the Triglavians and they start interacting with us. And even if they're just showing up on the in-character forums and yelling something Daz liminality, something flow expatriated, it's like because they have like copy pastes and stuff of that, like they start arguing in character, and then they start seeing the world news, and they see how the world news changes when they do something and it's reported in the in-game world news, and like that like blows people's mind, because it's not really the big null blocks who make their own news who's doing this. There's small alliances. Like I take out Edencom players, and sometimes you get one of them to go to low sec who hasn't really gone to low sec before, and I just love hearing like that was my first kill, because a lot of these people are like on the Edencom side, there is a backbone of like the RP PvPers and some other PvPers, but there's a lot of just people who are like, I want to defend high sec because I mine there, right? And getting these people, this event has gotten a lot of these people into like fighting for the first time, fighting another player, and I think that's like a lot of the people who have been living in low or null or wormholes for years. It seemed like, yeah, why do we care about this? But this has gotten a lot of people like PvPing for the first time and getting into the game world for the first time, and like fighting first and like participating in coordinated operations for the first time. You talk about how like the nullsec people have FCs, and then like the coordinator for the FCs. Well, like this has like coordinated groups that these people who might be in one-man corporations are experiencing for the first time. It's like a lot of people who are experiencing their first time being in anything coordinated. And I think that's a good experience for getting people out of their comfort zone and maybe getting them out of high sec and into low, into wormholes, into null, into maybe seeing what they might enjoy that they might not have given a chance before.
Well, this strikes me as very interesting, because the amount of commitment that you've just demonstrated, staying up basically all night along with your crew, working for this goal, is just as demanding as any other aspect of the game.
Well, yeah, but once again, I'm one of like the FCs who's like been in wars, been in campaigns, been in stuff before. And I'm not talking about myself when I say this, because like I've PvP'd since 2012 or so. And I was kind of like that before, where I was like, I don't know, I'm just going to run away from everybody. Right. But
yeah.
So I can relate a little. Go ahead.
Yeah. But the extension of, there's a couple things coming together here conceptually. One is that if you are a player that likes to mine in high sec and to kind of have your own environment, to live in this big universe where other people are doing things out there that you're not interested in being a part of, that there is a combat component to it that you can ease into on your own time. So it gives you that option, whereas that option might have been closed to you before that.
Very much so. And people are
and the second part of that, sorry, Baleful, the second part of that, and the reason it's like, well, okay, yeah, but it's kind of like, you know, the little proving grounds where you can kind of play PvP and it's instanced in a way. No, it's not that. This PvP that you can ease into and play on your own with strangers is also very meaningful in that it takes a long time to do a thing, which is what you just demonstrated.
Yeah, in order to win a system when it's being contested by both sides, like it might sit at 50% for like 6 hours until one time zone doesn't have for one side doesn't have enough to keep up with the other time zone for the other side. And you have to like coordinate, like the EU has to pass it to the US, who has to pass it to the AU time zones, and you have to, like, if your fleet goes down, you lose, right? For some of these pushes that are hotly contested. As for fighting, somebody asked a question about, are there fighting between the triangles and the squares? Like, I've been involved in, it's like it's not like 200-person fights, but there's billions of us being lost. We had a fight earlier tonight when I was playing the Sturbog Clade, which is one of the triangle supporting groups, brought like a small Lashak fleet, and our harbingers just ate them up on the gate, and it was pretty satisfying. Let me see I think we killed 4 Lashaks, and then like the other, like,
we can't
10,
hear you. Can you put your hand down?
sorry.
Yeah,
We killed like 4 Lashaks, and the other 10 people like jumped back out of the system because we caught them on the gate when they came in, because we were warping off the gate, and I saw the gate flashes, and I stopped my warp, and I yelled at everybody, stop your warp. And like a lot of people warped off, but the fleet was close enough to warp back and get reps on us before we died, and a couple guardians stayed by, so like nobody actually died, and we grabbed them as they came in.
nice.
That was pretty.
Keep your guys alive.
Happy.
Yeah, I will say, like, I know last week we were a little bit critical, or at least the guests and maybe all of us were a little bit critical of CCP's decision with like the storms thing. And it kind of seems more jokey. If you look at my background right now, I'm actually on the test server where they have the storms live. I'm actually in a storm right now. That foggy stuff are actual clouds.
Our first weather report.
Yeah, there you go. But I will say that it's easy to be critical. It's hard to look at a design that CCP has introduced and say, hey, this is amazing. And objectively, the Triglavian invasion system, it's an iteration on both factional warfare and the incursion systems in a way. And I think it's been hugely successful for all the reasons you mentioned. It's like a lot of times people who are maybe interested in PvP, but are like maybe intimidated or don't have a social group to fall back on, or the social group they got into aren't PvPers, so they kind of dip their toes in the deep end, and it's a really good way to do it.
So like, I think that the thing EVE Online does worst is the new player experience and teaching people how to play EVE Online and what EVE Online is, and directing people towards groups they need to be in. So like, this is kind of a way where like, okay, your home system that you mine in is invaded, and it's going to go low sec unless you work with the people who like show up and defend it, right? Like, it forces people to become part of some sort of group and work with them, or they just get wrecked. And I think that's actually more or less good, because a lot of people do just kind of not ever progress beyond like missioning or mining, and they get bored and they leave, and then we don't have more people to shoot.
Because it breaks people out of that dull monotony, right? Like it kind of shows them that like it's actually, this space is actually a little bit more alive, a little bit more dynamic than you may think.
And like, I'm sure everybody can attest to this. Like, once you start PvPing and you lose your first couple ships, and then it's like, it's not so bad. It's not the end of the world. And then it's just a way easier after that.
I liken that to taking drugs. And after you take a lot of drugs, you don't get as high as you used to when you took a little bit. And so, and I'm doing this on purpose now because it looks like I'm drugged out and I can't
dying in the background.
He looks like he hasn't slept in a week.
But here's the thing. I purposely am like a straight edge on this. I like to not die, so that I still feel the pain of dying, and it still makes me run as fast as I can not to die. So I'm kind of like saving that. I don't want to go and numb myself to the pain of dying in EVE Online. I am risk averse and proud.
So like my character is Arcia Elkin, and I'm Arcia Welpkin, and I like it that way. Like Abaddon's at 0, turbo feed or glory. That's the type of FC I am.
Speaking of which,
you are a drug addict.
I bought a ship recently named the Moros, and this may be like a future plans. Don't share this thing, but I want to share it with you guys. Speaking of bad ideas. You know how like Abaddons can fit artillery?
Arty Baddens are so hype.
Right.
I love
you know, they can do that, right? Well, I found out that my Moros can do the same thing with artillery and still have 50,000 alpha. So, I may have bought a Moros and fit it with Arty, and I'm gonna defend Delph with it.
I will tell you one thing.
Fit artillery to everything. You can fit it to the T2 Amara logistics cruiser, and you can have an Arty in.
See, when I was a newbie, like a brand spanking new newbie, I saw a Moros fit pulse lasers, and I still have the screenshot from 12 years ago, and gemming it when the guy was shooting a pulse with a pulse laser Moros, and everyone mocked him. But he was a revolutionary. So now I have a name for it is Abaddon, bigger Abaddon.
Oh, so you kind of stole the idea from Gobbins. Gobbins had this. It's an actual doctrine that Gobbins made up when he was in PL. This predates Horde. He called them fat cats. You just put Arty on just normal dreads and just put them in. What are you gonna do? You're not gonna kill them. They would augment the slow cats and the fat cats.
And the thing is that their alpha is still so high. Like the alpha is so insanely high that you can still like blow things up, and they shoot really far because they buff dreads. And so I'm just gonna park it like 100 off gates when like enemy fleets come in, and just hit them with Arty. And they're gonna be so confused. The
reason that boat is a national treasure is that he can look at a pulse laser Moros, and instead of saying that guy's an idiot, he says that guy is a revolutionary. Like
he's a genius.
he just like. Eve would not be the same without DBRB, and I'm so glad he's here.
I want boat radio on TIS. I think that would be awesome. I'm going to keep plugging for this.
But I actually wanted to do it with my Phoenix, but they don't have a gun slot anymore. They used to have one. They used to have one gun. And so I was going to do it with my Phoenix. It's kind of like people that used to do missile Nagelfars. But yeah, they need to bring back the old Moros. Not going to lie. When the Moros,
the
heavy drones, what they need to do is the faction Moros needs to be able to use blasters and fighters.
So for those that don't know, the old Moros had drones, and the siege module also affected the drones, the damage output. So you would get 600% bonus to your sentry drones or heavy drones.
Yeah, so back in the day, you had a group called Mercenary Coalition that would use like Moros fleets, and they would have like 6 or 7 of them. And the drones did like heavy drones, like they would use like Ogre 2s or Berserker 2s, and they would do like 3,000 DPS just in the drones. And then they would have the cap guns, blasters. So if anyone dropped caps on them, they would have the blasters to fight them off. And if subcaps came, well, you're doing 3,000 DPS with drones. So
back in the day, people didn't think to shoot drones.
It wasn't a thing. All right. Well, we're slipping into the overtime section of the show, so we got to wrap up and get out before long. If you are interested in Eve Echoes, we were going to have a round of reactions to it. I think we're going to skip that and encourage you to watch right now Talking in Stations on YouTube. That's youtube.com/Talking in Stations, where they are talking about Eve Echoes, and that is Who's a Fish. So check her out right now if you want to check in on drones and how it's going. Echoes and how it's going. I got drones on the mind. I think I think we covered the Battle of YTAC 2, why it was important, what the aftermath looks like, what the next steps are going to be, pretty well. But in case you want to know more, come to Talking in Stations Discord and hang out with us while we go through the week. Last opportunity to discuss anything else, you guys.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Boat, do you like being on the show?
Yeah.
I feel like we get you in trouble a lot.
No, I enjoy it. It's just I don't know how many Sundays from like today forward I'll have free, like because of work and everything. Yeah.
I'll stop coming on to you and recruiting you and that sort of thing. I just want to make sure you know that we're like, super appreciate like your style and your creativity and your energy is like fantastic. I think Caleb is a huge fan. I'm going to point to him to deflect a little bit.
I've been a fan since day one because usually when you're looking at streamers doing what Boat's doing, it gets boring pretty fast, and Boat is a master of keeping it entertaining.
For a long time, yeah. Plus, anyway, we can't speak highly enough about how entertaining you've been over the years, and so yeah, I'm not going to pay you $1 trillion because one, I don't have it. Two,
that's the price tag right now. But
two, we want to keep you in the game.
I mean, even if people crowdsourced it, like I tell you,
they'll take it.
It's the wallet. It's done. I'm out. And I
still don't believe it. I'm just going to say that I have heard that it's even more fun to actually be on boat fleets than just watching boat fleets.
I can confirm
I have this running gimmick where I tell people that we're gonna suicide the fleet and then we live, and it makes me kind of sad because the fleet's not supposed to live.
That's what
and then we do. Then we have to,
the weirdest situation that I've ever been in terms of like enjoying myself, but watching my fleet mates die like in droves is literally when we have to travel as a bomber fleet through a gate camp. And people get caught and killed, and it's literally you just hear Boat going, "Stop exploding! Jesus Christ! Just cloak. That's all you need to do."
I did it yesterday. I was like, "Warp off! This is horrible. You're not warping. We're not going to kill anything." So I fleet warped them. I was like, "Fuck it! I'm doing it. Doing it for you." And I hit fleet warp, and then I still had someone complain that they died.
Stop dying. That's like Homer Simpson hitting a TV when he's watching a comedy. Like, be funnier.
Oh no, it's actually better than that. It's like Homer Simpson looking at someone when they say, "This is the worst day of my life," and he goes, "The worst day of your life so far."
Right. And we are going to backstep into a bush, right? We call it what do we call that, Caleb?
That's a moonwalk.
Yeah, we're going to moonwalk out and give you guys the rest of your day. Thank you very much for hanging out with us for 2+ hours. Don't forget to watch Eve Echoes right now on YouTube /Talking in Stations. Want to thank our guest Killer B, who had to leave earlier, and Boat, who's been with us today. Thanks. And of course, Baleful and Elise and Caleb and our engineer McLeod. Thank you guys for putting on the show. And thank the audience and Ron USMC for throwing us like 400 people. That got us up to like a lot for a long time. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you guys being here. We'll see you during the week. That's all we have time for today. We'll see you next week on Talking in Stations.
Yep. Bye.